Conroy. Just goddamn brilliant, and it's not the point." "Of course it is." She blew out a breath, stirring her bangs. "He thought I was stupid. He thought I was some money-grubbing junk dealer who doesn't know her butt from a Delft vase, but he's going to find out differently." "That's also beside the point. You should have put him off until I got back." "I did very well on my own, thank you. I'm not an idiot." "Do you have star 69 on your phone system?" Her face went blank. "Excuse me?" "Return call. You press a couple of buttons and your phone rings back whoever called you last."
"Oh."
As the wind leaked out of her sails, she examined her nails.
"Yeah, I guess I do."
He studied her bowed head. "I don't suppose you thought to try it."
"I can't think of everything," she mumbled.
Hopefully she looked up.
"We can try it now."
"The phone's rung 3 times since I got back."
"Oh."
She pushed up from the chair.
"Go ahead. Tell me I blew it."
"I don't have to. You just did." He gave her hair a tug. "Don't take it too hard, Nancy Drew. Even amateur sleuths screw up now and again."
She knocked his hand away. "Take a leap, Skimmerhorn."
"Brant and I will work out how to handle Petroy on Thursday. We'll be back by then."
"Back? Are you and Brent going somewhere?"
"No, you and I are."
He tucked his thumbs in his pockets. He still wasn't happy about it, but she'd made an odd sort of sense.
"We're leaving for L.A. tomorrow."
"I'm going to do it?" She pressed a hand to her heart, then tossed her arms wide and vaulted into his. "I'm actually going to do it!" Thrilled with the prospect, she raced kisses over his face. "I knew you'd see it my way."
"I didn't. I was outvoted."
He wasn't going to admit he'd seen the simple beauty of her idea and had recommended it to Brent. "Whatever." She kissed him again, hard. "Tomorrow?" she said, rearing back. "God, that's so quick. I have to decide what I'm going to wear."
"That's the least of your worries."
No. The proper presentation is essential to character. My navy pinstripe," she considered. "It's very polite and businesslike. Or maybe the red double-breasted, more power and sex. I could distract him with my legs."
"Go for businesslike."
Because she enjoyed the faint trace of annoyance in the tone, she smiled. "Definitely the red."
"For all you know, he won't even see you."
"Of course he'll see me." She stopped, frowned. "How are we going to make him want to see me?"
"Because you're going to call him, and you're going to say exactly what I tell you to say."
"I see." She tilted her head, lifted a brow. "Have you written me a script, Skimmerhorn? I'm a quick study. I can be off book in no time."
"Just do what you're told."
In Los Angeles, Winesap entered Finley's office with a worried frown creasing his face.
"Mr. Finley, sir. Miss Conroy, she's on line 2. She's waiting to speak with you."
"Is that so?" Finley closed the file he'd been studying, folded his hands on top of it. "An interesting development." Winesap's hands twisted together like nervous cats.
"Mr. Finley, when I spoke with her earlier today, she was quite cooperative, and I certainly never mentioned my connection with you. I don't know what this might mean."
"Then we'll find out, won't we? Sit, Abel." He lifted the receiver and, smiling, leaned back in his chair. "Miss Conroy, Edmund Finley here." He listened, his smile growing wider and more feral. "I'm afraid I don't follow you, Miss Conroy. You're inquiring about one of my employees, Anthony DiCarlo?" I see. He picked up a letter opener from his desk and tested the honed point with the pad of his thumb. "Of course, I understand if you feel a personal meeting is important. I don't know if I'll be able to help. We've told the police all we know about Mr. DiCarlo's unexplained disappearance, which is, unfortunately, nothing." "Very well," he added after a moment. "If you feel you can't discuss it over the telephone, I'd be happy to see you. Tomorrow?" His brows raised. Gently, he scraped the point of the letter opener over the Conroy file. "That is rather short notice. Life and death?" He barely suppressed a chuckle. "I'll see if it can be arranged. Will you hold? I'll give you to my assistant. He'll check my calendar. I'll look forward to meeting you." With a flourish of wrist, Finley punched the hold button. "Give her 4 o'clock." "You have a meeting at 3:30, sir." "Give her 4 o'clock," Finley repeated, and held out the phone. "Yes, sir." Winesap took the receiver in his damp hand, engaged the line. "Miss Conroy, this is Abel Winesap, Mr. Finley's assistant. You'd like an appointment for tomorrow? I'm afraid the only time Mr. Finley has open is at 4. "Yes. You have the address?" "Excellent. We'll be expecting you." "Delightful." Finley nodded approval when Winesap replaced the receiver. "Simply delightful. Fools walk in, Abel." He opened Dora's file again and smiled genially at her dossier. "I'm certainly looking forward to this. Clear my calendar for tomorrow afternoon. I want no distractions when I see Miss Isadora Conroy. She will have all my attention."
"Tomorrow, 4 o'clock," Dora said, and turned to Jed. He sounded puzzled but cooperative, pleasant but reserved. "And you sounded on the verge of hysteria but controlled." Impressed despite himself, he tipped her face up with his finger and kissed her. "Not bad, Conroy. Not bad at all." "There's something else." Though she wanted to, she didn't take his hand. If she had, he'd have seen that hers was chilled. "I think I just spoke with Mr. Petroy."
"Finley?"
"No." She forced a thin smile. "His assistant, Winesap." 25. Dora was pleased and impressed when the cab pulled up in front of the pink stucco villa that was the Beverly Hills Hotel. "Well, well, Skimmerhorn, you surprise me. This makes up for not springing for a night at the Plaza in New York."
"The room's booked in your name."
Jed watched Dora gracefully offer her hand to the doorman. The gesture was one of a woman who'd been sliding out of limos all her life.
"You have to put it on your credit card."
She cast a withering look at him over her shoulder. "Thanks a bunch, big spender."
"You want to advertise the fact that you're traveling out here with a companion?" he asked when she sailed through the doors and into the lobby. "A cop?"
"You left out the X."
"So I did,"
he murmured, and waited while Dora checked in. The Tony lobby of the BHH didn't seem exactly the right setting to tell her that the X wouldn't apply much longer. Dora covertly scanned the lobby for passing movie stars when she handed the desk clerk her card for imprint. "I'm going to bill you for this, Skimmerhorn."
"It was your idea to come."
"True enough." "Then I'll only bill you for half." She accepted her card and 2 keys, passed one to the waiting bellman. "Some of us are not independently wealthy."
"Some of us,"
he said as he slipped an arm around her waist,
"paid for the airfare."
She was touched by the easy way he'd linked them together as they trailed the luggage to the elevator and up to the room. Dora quickly slipped out of her shoes and padded over to the window to check out the view. There was nothing quite so Californian, she mused, as lush lawns, regal palms, and cozy stucco cottages. "I haven't been in L.A. since I was 15. We stayed in an incredibly bad hotel in Burbank, while my father did a part in a small, forgettable film with John Voight. It did not distinguish either of their careers." She stretched her back, rolled her shoulders. "I guess I'm a snob, an East Coast snob, because L.A. doesn't do it for me. It makes me think of unnecessary eye tucks and designer yogurt. Or maybe it's designer eye tucks and unnecessary yogurt. After all, who really needs yogurt in their lives?" She turned back, her smile becoming puzzled when he only continued to stare at her. "What is it?"
"I just like looking at you sometimes, that's all."
"Oh." When he saw that the statement had both pleased and flustered her, he smiled back.
"You're okay, Conroy, even with the pointy chin."
"It's not pointy." She rubbed it defensively. "It's delicately sculpted. You know, maybe we should have booked a suite. This room's hardly bigger than a closet. Or maybe we can just go out for a while, get something to eat, and soak up some smog."
"You're nervous."
"Of course I'm not nervous." She tossed her bag onto the bed and undid the straps.
"You're nervous,"
Jed repeated.
"You talk too much when you're nervous. Actually, you talk too much all the time, but there's a different quality to the babble when you're nervous, and you can't keep your hands still." He laid his gently over hers. Obviously, I've already become too predictable, the first death knell in any relationship. He simply turned her around, keeping her hands in his. You've got a right to be nervous. I'd be more worried about you if you weren't. I don't want you to worry. Because she didn't. She willed her hands to relax in his. I'm going to be fine. Classic opening night jitters, that's all it is. You don't have to do this. I can keep the appointment for you. I never give the understudy a chance to steal my thunder. She inhaled and exhaled twice, deeply. I'm okay. Wait till you read the reviews. Since she so obviously needed him to, he played along. What did you used to do before opening night? Thinking back, she sat on the edge of the bed. Well, you'd pace a lot. Pacing's good. And you'd keep running lines in your head and going over the blocking. I'd get out of my street clothes and into a robe, sort of like a snake shedding, and vocalize. I used to do a lot of tongue twisters. Such as? Moses supposes his toes are roses, that kind of thing. Grinning, she waggled her tongue between her teeth. You've got to limber the tongue. Yours has always seemed pretty limber to me. Thanks. She laughed and looked back at him. Good job, Skimmerhorn. I feel better. Good. He gave her hair a brotherly tussle, then turned to the phone. I'll order up some room service, then we'll go over the routine again. Dora groaned and flopped back on the bed. I hate heavy-handed directors. But he didn't let up. 2 hours later they had eaten, argued, discussed every possible contingency, and he was still unsatisfied. He listened to her reciting tongue twisters in the bathroom and frowned at the door. He'd have felt better if she'd been wearing a wire. Foolish, he supposed, as she'd be walking into a fully staffed office building in broad daylight, but it would have eased his mind. If he hadn't been concerned that Finley's security might have picked up on it, he'd have insisted. It was a simple job, he reminded himself, one with little to no risk, and he'd already taken the precaution of seeing that the minimal degree of risk was all but eliminated. It was the all but that nagged at him. The door opened, and Dora stepped out wearing the red suit that showed off every glorious curve in that sexy body, highlighting her legs in a way that would make any man this side of the grave salivate. What do you think? She was holding 2 different pairs of earrings up to each lobe. The drops or the knots? How the hell should I know? The knots, she decided. More discreet. She fastened them on. I'd forgotten how much better you feel once you're in costume. There's just those little ripples of nerves that keep the adrenaline up. She reached for her bottle of perfume. He frowned as she spritzed on scent, the throat, the back of the neck, the wrists, the backs of her knees. Something about the female ritual made his stomach jitter. When she picked up her antique silver brush and pulled it slowly through her hair, he knew what that something was. It made him feel like a voyeur. You look fine. He had to clear his throat. You can stop primping now. Brushing your hair isn't primping, it's basic grooming. While she gave it another sweep, she caught his gaze in the mirror. I'd swear you're more nervous than I am. Just stick to the plan and try to remember everything you see. Don't bring up the painting. You haven't got a clue about the painting. Try to go through Winesap. We're running him down, but I want your impressions, not your speculations, your impressions. I know. Patiently, she set the brush aside. Jed, I know exactly what to do and how to do it. It's simple. Simpler because I might have done just this if I hadn't known about the painting. It's a very logical step. Just watch your ass. Darling, I'm counting on you to do that for me. Dora was impressed with the decor of Finley's outer office, trying to pick up helpful clues. As she'd suspected, he was a collector, and their mutual interest would give them a firm foundation. Her hands were chilled. That was good, too. The honest nerves she projected were just what she needed to set the tone for her visit. It was difficult to hang on to those nerves and character when she really wanted to walk over and examine some of Finley's treasures firsthand. She felt favorably toward anyone who put malachite vases and chipperous figures in his waiting area. And the settee she was using was no reproduction. early Chippendale, Dora thought reverently, high-style Rococo. She sincerely hoped Finley would prove himself to be in the clear. She'd love to develop a business relationship, but if he wasn't... The thought of that had the nerves creeping back. She fiddled with the calla lily pin at her lapel, brushed at her skirt, looked at her watch. Damn, it was 4:10, she thought. How long was he going to keep her waiting? "Excellent, excellent," Finley murmured to Dora's video image. She was every bit as lovely as he'd expected from the faded newspaper photos Winesap had unearthed from old show and style sections. Her wardrobe showed a flair for color and line, as well as an affection for the feminine. He respected a woman who knew how to present herself to her best advantage. He enjoyed the way her hands moved restlessly through her hair, over her body. Nerves, he thought, pleased. A spider gained more thrill from a panicky fly than a resigned one. And despite the nerves, he noted, her eyes were drawn again and again to pieces in his collection. That flattered him. They would do very well together, he decided, very well indeed. He buzzed his receptionist. It was time to begin. "Mr. Finley will see you now." "Thank you." Dora rose, tucked her envelope bag under her arm, and followed the woman to the double doors. When she entered, Finley smiled and stood. "Miss Conroy, I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting." "I'm just happy you could see me at all." She crossed the rug, that pool of white, and took his extended hand. Her first impression was one of vitality and health and of well-channeled power. "It seemed important to you. What can we offer you? Some coffee, tea, or perhaps some wine?" Wine would be lovely, and would give her the prop of a glass to twist in her hands as she told her story. "The Puy Fumé, Barbara. Please sit, Miss Conroy. Be comfortable." In a move calculated to disarm her, he rounded the desk and took the chair beside her. "And how was your flight?" "Long." Dora's smile was fleeting. "But I shouldn't complain. The weather was turning nasty at home. But of course I'll go back tomorrow." "So soon?" His bright eyes glinted with just the right touch of curiosity. "I'm flattered to have such a pretty young woman travel all this way just to see me." His receptionist had uncorked the bottle. Obviously, Dora mused, her duties included those of a wine steward. She passed Finley the cork and tipped an inch of wine in his glass for approval. "Yes," he said, after rolling the wine on his tongue and swallowing. "That will do nicely." When the wine was poured in both glasses, the secretary slipped soundlessly out of the room. Finley raised his glass. "To your health, Miss Conroy, and a safe journey home." "Thank you." It was beautiful wine, silk on the tongue, with just a hint of smoke. "I know it might sound foolish, coming all this way just to see you, Mr. Finley, but I honestly felt compelled." As if overcome, she looked down into the pale gold wine in her glass, let her fingers tighten on the stem. "Now that I'm here, I don't know where to start." "I can see you're upset," Finley said kindly. "Take your time. You told me on the phone this had to do with Anthony DiCarlo. Are you—" He paused delicately. "A friend?" "Oh, no." There was horror in her voice, in her eyes, as she dragged them back to Finley's. She imagined DiCarlo's voice whispering in her ear to bring the rusty edge of revulsion into her voice. "No, Mr. Finley, I need to ask how much you know about him." "Personally?" Thinking, he pursed his lips. "I'm afraid I don't know many of my branch employees as well as I might. The company is very large now, and unfortunately that depersonalizes matters. We had a meeting here just before Christmas. I noticed nothing out of the ordinary. He seemed as competent as always." "Then he's worked for you for some time?" 6 years, I believe, more or less." He sampled more wine. "I have studied his files since this odd disappearance to refresh my memory. He has an excellent record with the company. Mr. DiCarlo worked his way up the corporate ladder rather quickly. He showed initiative and ambition, both of which I believe in rewarding. He came from a poor background, you know." When she only shook her head, he smiled and continued. "As I did myself. The desire to better oneself. This is something I respect in an employee and also tend to reward. As one of my top executives on the East Coast, he's proven himself to be reliable and cunning.
He smiled again.
In my business, one must be cunning. I'm very much afraid of foul play. As Mr. DiCarlo's work record would indicate, he isn't a man to neglect his responsibilities this way.
I think I might know where he is.
Really?
There was a flash in Finley's eyes. I think he's in Philadelphia. As if to bolster her courage, Dora took another quick sip and her hand shook lightly. I think he's watching me.
My dear.
Finley reached for her hand.
Watching you? What do you mean?
I'm sorry. It's not making sense. Let me try to start at the beginning. She told the story well, with several pauses for composure and one significant break in which she described the attack. And I don't understand, she finished, with her eyes wet and shimmering. I don't understand why.
My dear, how horrible for you.
Finley was all baffled sympathy, while his mind performed rapid calculations. It appeared DiCarlo had left out a few significant details, he mused. There had been no mention in his report of an attempted rape, nor of a nightly neighbor coming to the rescue. It explained the bruises on his face during his last and final visit, however.
You're telling me, Finley began, his tone lightly shocked, that the man who broke into your shop, the man who attacked you, was Anthony DiCarlo?
I saw his face. As if overcome, Dora covered her own with her hand. I'll never forget it. And I identified him to the police. He's killed a police officer, Mr. Finley, and a woman. He left another woman for dead. One of my customers. The thought of Mrs. Lyle urged the first tear down her cheek. I'm sorry. I've been so upset, so frightened. Thank you, she managed, when Finley gallantly offered his handkerchief. None of it makes any sense, you see. He only stole a few trinkets, and as for Mrs. Lyle, my customer, he took nothing of any real value, just a china dog, a statue she'd bought from me the day before. I think he must be crazy, she murmured, lowering her hand again. I think he must be mad.
I hope you understand this is difficult for me to take in. Mr. DiCarlo has worked for me for years. The idea of one of my own staff attacking women, murdering police officers. Miss Conroy, Isadora.
He took her hand again, gently, a father comforting a child after a bad dream.
Are you absolutely certain it was Anthony DiCarlo?
I saw his face, she said again. The police said he had a record, nothing like this, and nothing for several years, but
I knew he'd had some trouble.
With a sigh, Finley sat back.
Just as I felt I understood the need to overcome the past mistakes. But I would never have believed. It seems I misjudged him badly. What can I do to help you?
I don't know. Dora twisted the handkerchief in her hands. I guess I'd hoped you'd have some idea what to do, where the police might look. If he contacted you...
My dear, I assure you, if he contacts me, I will do everything in my power to lead the authorities to him. Perhaps his family knows something.
She dried her tears and, calmer, shook her head. The police have questioned them, I believe. I actually thought of going to see his mother myself, but I couldn't. I couldn't face that.
I'll make some calls. Do whatever I can to help you.
Thank you. She let out a shaky sigh, followed by a shaky smile. I feel better doing something. The worst is the waiting, the not knowing where he is or what he's planning. I'm afraid to go to sleep at night. If he came back, she shuddered sincerely, I don't know what I'd do.
You have no reason to think he will. Are you sure he gave you no idea why he chose your shop?
None. That's what's so terrifying, to be picked at random that way. Then Mrs. Lyle, He shot her housekeeper and left Mrs. Lyle for dead, all for some little statue." Her eyes, still wet, were guileless and trusting. "A man doesn't kill for that, does he?"
"I wish I knew." Finley heaved a heartfelt sigh. "Perhaps, as you say, he's gone mad, but I have every confidence in the authorities. I'll say with full confidence that you won't be bothered by Mr. DiCarlo again."
"I'm trying to hold on to that. You've been very kind, Mr. Finley."
"Edmund."
"Edmund." She smiled again, courageously. "Just talking it out has helped. I'd like to ask, if you find anything at all, that you'd call me. The police aren't very free with information."
"I understand. And of course I'll keep in touch with you. We have an excellent security team on retainer. I'm going to put them on this. If there's a trace of DiCarlo, they'll find it."
"Yes."
She closed her eyes, let her shoulders relax.
"I knew I was right to come here. Thank you."
When she rose, he took both her hands in his.
"Thank you so much for listening to me."
"I only regret that I can't do more. I'd consider it a favor if you'd agree to have dinner with me tonight."
"Dinner?"
Her mind went sheet blank. "I don't like to think of you alone and upset. I feel responsible. DiCarlo is, after all, my man. Or was," he corrected with a small smile.
"That's very kind of you."
"Then indulge me. Ease my conscience a bit, and I admit I would find it very pleasant to spend the evening with a lovely young woman who shares some of my interests."
"Your interests?"
"Collecting." Finley gestured toward a curio cabinet. "If you run an antique and collectibles shop, I think you'd be interested in some of my treasures."
"Yes, I am. I'm sure you're much more knowledgeable than I, but I've already admired several of your pieces. The horse's head?" She nodded toward a stone figure. "Han Dynasty?"
"Precisely."
He beamed, a professor to a prize student.
"You have a good eye."
"I love things," she confessed. "Owning things."
"Ah, yes, I understand."
He reached up to brush a fingertip lightly over her lapel pin.
"Applique à jour, early 1900s."
She beamed back at him. "You, too, have a good eye."
"I have a brooch I'd like you to see."
He thought of the sapphire and the pleasure it would give him to taunt her with it.
"I only recently acquired it, and I know you'd appreciate it. So it is decided? I'll have a car pick you up at your hotel, say 7:30. Please don't misunderstand. My home is fully staffed, so you'll be well chaperoned. But I don't often have the opportunity to show off my treasures to someone who recognizes their intrinsic worth. I'd love your opinion on my pomander collection."
"Pomanders?" Dora said, and sighed. If she hadn't been on a mission, she'd have agreed in any case. How could she resist a collection of pomanders? "I'd love to."
Dora strolled back into the hotel room filled with the warmth of success.
She found Jed pacing, the air blue with smoke, and rattled by an old war movie on television he wasn't watching.
"What the hell took you so long?"
"It was only an hour." She slipped out of her shoes as she walked to him. "I was brilliant," she said, and wrapped her arms around his neck.
"I'll tell you if you were brilliant."
He put a hand on top of her head and pushed her into a chair. Snatching the remote, he ended the war with a fizzle.
"You tell me about Finley. Everything from the top."
"Is there any coffee left?" She picked up a room service pot, sniffed the contents. "Let me savor the moment, will you?" She poured coffee and sipped it black and tepid. "I want some cheesecake," she decided. "Order us up some cheesecake, okay?"
"Don't push it, Conroy."
"You know how to take the fun out of things." "All right." She took a last sip, sat back, and told him. "He really was nice," she concluded, "very understanding and properly shocked by my story. I, of course, played the part of the high-strung, spooked-at-every-shadow heroine to perfection. The police simply aren't doing enough to ease my mind, so he very gallantly offered to do whatever he could down to hiring a private firm to track down DeCarlo.
What about Winesap?
He wasn't there. I asked for him at first, but the receptionist told me he was out of the office today.
If he's the one who's going to keep the appointment next Thursday, he couldn't afford having you see him.
I thought of that, so I stopped to talk to the security guard in the lower lobby on the way out. I told him I'd seen Abel Winesap's name on the board and that my father had worked with an Abel Winesap once, years ago, and had lost touch. So I asked if this guy was tall and heavy-set with red hair. It turns out this Winesap is short and skinny, round-shouldered and balding.
Good girl, Nancy.
Thanks, Ned. Do you think Nancy and Ned ever made love? You know, in the back of her coupe after a particularly satisfying case?
I'd like to think so. Get back on track, Conroy.
Okay.
Now came the hard part, Dora mused. She would have to work up to it carefully.
Finley's office is incredible. Oh, I forgot to mention the monitors. He has a whole wall of them. Kind of creepy, you know? All these television shows running silently side by side with different parts of the building. I guess he has security cameras everywhere. But that's not why it's incredible. He had a Gallet lamp in his office that made me want to sit up and beg, and a Han horse that barely touches on it. Anyway, I'll see his personal collection at dinner tonight.
Jed snatched her wrist before she could bound up. Play that back, Conroy. Slow speed.
I'm having dinner with him.
What makes you think so?
Because he asked me, and I accepted. And before you start listing all the reasons why I shouldn't, I'll tell you why I should. She'd worked it out, point by point, in the cab on the way back. He was kind to me in the office, very concerned and avuncular. He believes I'm in town alone and that I'm upset. He knows I have a rabid interest in collectibles and antiques. If I'd said no, it would have set the entirely wrong tone.
If he's involved, the last place you should be is alone with him at his house.
If he's involved, she countered, the last place he'd want anything to happen would be his own house, especially when I tell him I called my parents to check in and told them I'd be having dinner with him.
It's a stupid idea.
It isn't. It will give me more time to cultivate him. He likes me, she added, and walked over to the closet. She'd brought a little black dress along and had paired it with a glittery bolero jacket in red and gold stripes. Holding them in front of her, she turned to the mirror. He doesn't like the idea of me spending the evening alone in L.A. while I'm upset.
Jed watched the sequins glimmer through narrowed eyes. Did he come on to you?
Dora paused in the act of unbuttoning her suit jacket. Are you jealous, Skimmerhorn? The laugh bubbled out, quick and delighted. Isn't that cute?
I am not jealous.
He'd never been jealous of a woman in his life. Never. He wasn't about to admit it now.
I asked you a simple question, and I'd like an answer.
She took off the jacket, revealing the creamy lace and silk of the camisole beneath. You're going to put yourself in the awkward position of making me tell you I love you again. We wouldn't want that, would we? When his stomach clenched, he swore under his breath, grabbed another cigarette.
Maybe I'm fed up with watching you deck yourself out for another man.
That's what I'm here for, isn't it? To meet him, gain his sympathy and confidence, and to find out everything I can? With her head tilted to the side, she studied Jed's set face. Would you feel better if I told you I didn't have any intention of sleeping with him?
Yeah, I'll rest easy now.
He blew out a frustrated stream of smoke.
I don't like you going in there alone. I don't have enough on him, and I don't like it.
You'll have more when I get back, won't you? She walked over to hang up the jacket. He crossed the room so quietly she jumped when his hands touched her shoulders.
I'm not used to being the one who waits.
She arranged the jacket meticulously on the hanger. I guess I can understand that.
I never had anyone to worry about before. I don't like it.
I can understand that, too. She unzipped her skirt and clipped it neatly on another hanger. I'll be fine.
Sure you will.
He lowered his cheek to the back of her head.
Dora.
What could he say, he wondered. Nothing that was churning inside him seemed right.
I'll miss you tonight. I guess I've gotten used to having you around. Wonderfully touched, she smiled and lifted a hand to cover one of his. "You're such a sentimental slob, Skimmerhorn. It's always hearts and flowers with you." "Is that what you want?" He turned her to face him. "Is that what you're looking for?" Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she brushed her knuckles over his cheek. "I've got a heart, thanks, and I can buy flowers any time I like." To comfort him, she nuzzled her lips to his. "I've also got an hour before I have to get ready. Why don't you take me to bed?" It would have been a pleasure and a relief, but both pleasure and relief would have to wait. "We've got work to do, Conroy. Put on your robe and we'll go over the ground rules for your dinner." Huffing, she stepped back. "I'm standing here in little more than a lace garter belt, and you're telling me to put on a robe?" "That's right." "You have gotten used to me," she muttered. 26. Dora stepped off the curb and into a white Mercedes limo at precisely 7:30. There was a single white rosebud laid across the seat and a Beethoven sonata playing softly on the stereo. A bottle of champagne was iced beside a crystal bowl of beluga. Brushing the rose petals across her cheek, she looked up toward the window where she knew Jed would be watching. Too bad, she mused as the car pulled smoothly away. It appeared that she did need hearts and flowers, and was unlikely to receive them from the man who mattered most. Because she was looking back, she noticed a man in a gray suit slip into a dark sedan and cruise out into traffic behind them. Dora closed her eyes, slipped out of her shoes to run her bare feet luxuriously over the plush carpet, and put all thoughts of Jed behind her. For the next few hours, she was alone. Armed with a glass of champagne and a toast point of caviar, she enjoyed the ride up into the hills. Though under other circumstances she might have struck up a conversation with the driver, she hugged the silence to her and prepared for Act Two. After her impressions of his office, she'd expected Finley's house to be lavish. She wasn't disappointed. The sweeping drive up, the quick, teasing peaks of the building through screening trees, then the full impact of stone and brick and glass simmering in the last fiery lights of the dying sun. A well-set stage. She took the rose with her. There was only a moment to appreciate the atom door knocker in the shape of a dolphin before the door was opened by a uniformed maid. "Miss Conroy, Mr. Finley would like you to wait in the drawing-room." Dora didn't bother to disguise her open-mouthed admiration for the magnificence of the entrance hall. In the parlor, she gave the maid a murmured assent at the offer of wine, and was grateful when she had the glass in hand and was alone to worship. She felt as though she had entered some personal museum, one structured for her alone. Everything she saw was spectacular, and every piece her eyes feasted on seemed more glorious. So glorious it was impossible not to gorge. She saw herself reflected in the George III mirror, ran her fingers delicately over a mahogany armchair of the same period, crooned over a Japanese Kakemon tiger. When Finley joined her, she was mentally devouring a collection of Netskis. "I see you're enjoying my toys." "Oh, yes." Eyes dark and brilliant with appreciation, she turned from the curio. "I feel like Alice, and I've just stumbled into the best corner of Wonderland." He laughed and poured himself a glass of wine. He'd known he would enjoy her. "I was certain I'd find it pleasant to share my things with you. I'm afraid I spend too much time alone with them." "You've made my trip very worthwhile, Mr. Finley." "Then I'm content." He walked over, placed a light hand at the small of her back. It wasn't a suggestive move. She had no explanation as to why her skin crawled under the friendly pressure. "You were looking at the Netskis." He opened the curio and deliberately chose one of the pieces of erotica that had been smuggled in the mermaid bookends. "Not everyone can appreciate the humor and the sexuality, as well as the artistry of these pieces." Chuckling, she took the figure of the man and woman into her palm. "But they look so pleased with themselves, trapped forever in that moment of anticipation. It's hard to imagine some stoic samurai with something like this dangling from his obi." Finley merely smiled. "And yet That's precisely how I like to imagine it. Worn by a warlord into bed and into battle. One of the Tokugawa family, perhaps. I enjoy giving a history to each of my possessions." He replaced the figure. "Shall I give you the tour before dinner?" "Yes, please." Agreeably, she slipped a hand through his arm. He was knowledgeable, erudite, and entertaining, Dora thought. Why, before an hour was up, she was violently uncomfortable, she couldn't have said. He took a greedy delight in all that he'd acquired, yet she understood greed. He was unfailingly correct in his manner toward her, yet she felt increasingly as though she were being subtly violated. It took all of her skill and control to play out her prescribed role as they moved from room to room. By the time they were nearly finished, she'd begun to understand that one could have too much of even the beautiful and precious. "This is the pin I mentioned earlier." Excited by the fact that he was showing her each and every one of the smuggled items, Finley offered her the sapphire brooch. "The stone is, of course, magnificent, but the workmanship of the setting, and again, the history add intrigue." "It's beautiful." It was. The gleaming blue eye winking up at her from its bed of delicate gold filigree and fiery diamonds, both beautiful and tragic. Tragic, she realized, because it would be forever behind glass, never again to grace a woman's silks or make her smile when she adorned herself with it. Perhaps that was the difference between them. She passed her treasures on, gave them a new life. Finley locked his away. "It was said to belong to a queen," Finley told her, waiting, watching her face for a sign of recognition. "Mary, Queen of Scots. I often wonder if she wore it when she was arrested for treason." "I'd rather think of her wearing it when she was riding across the moors." "And this?" He chose the etui. "This belonged to another queen with a sad fate. Napoleon gave it to Josephine before he divorced her for being barren." "You give your treasures a sad history, Edmund." "I find poignancy increases their meaning for me. The trinkets of the rich and the royal, now a part of the collection of a commoner. Shall we dine?" There was lobster bisque and Peking duck, so delicate it all but melted on the tongue. The meal was served on Limoges and eaten with Georgian silver. Dom Perignon was poured into antique Waterford that glittered like crystal tears. "Tell me about your shop," Finley invited. "It must be exciting for you to buy and sell every day, to handle lovely things time and again." "I do love it." Dora fought to relax and enjoy the meal. "I'm afraid most of what I have falls far below your collections. What I stock is a mixture of antiques and estate items along with—" "Junk," she all but heard Jed's sneering and comforting voice. "Novelty items," she said a bit primly. "I love the foolish as well as the beautiful." "And like myself, you appreciate the having, the control. There's something innately satisfying about making your own business out of something you love. Not everyone has the opportunity or the courage to make it a success. I believe, Isadora, that you have a great deal of courage." Her stomach fluttered, but she managed to swallow the bite of duck. "My family considers it stubbornness. I hate to confess, but I frighten very easily." "You underestimate yourself. After all, you came here to me." He smiled, watching her over the rim of his glass with eyes as sharp as carved jade. "For all you knew, De Carlo might have been acting on my orders. After all, he was an employee." When she went pale and set down her fork with a rattle, he laughed, patted her hand. "Now I have frightened you. I apologize. It was merely said to illustrate my point. What sense would it make for me to have De Carlo break into your shop and steal a few trinkets when I could so easily acquire them myself?" "I doubt I'd have very much you'd find interesting." "Oh, I disagree." He smiled and signaled for dessert. "I believe I'd find a great deal of what you have to offer of interest. Tell me," he said, "do you ever come across any Gruby?" "I once had a statue of a boy. Badly chipped, I'm afraid." She fisted and unfisted her hands in her lap as the creamy chocolate souffle was served. "I noticed your vase in the library. It's lovely." She relaxed into the discussion of pottery and began to believe that she'd imagined he'd been baiting her. Later they had coffee and brandy before a sedate fire in the drawing room. The conversation was easy again, like that of old friends. All the while, Dora's nerves drummed. She'd never wanted to escape so badly in her life. "I'm sorry you can't extend your visit." Finley passed a small porcelain nude from hand to hand. "Running a business doesn't give one as much flexible time as some people think. I'm sure you'd understand."
"Yes, indeed. There are times when I feel a prisoner of my own success. Do you?"
He skimmed a fingertip over the nude's glossy breast.
"Feel trapped?"
"No."
But she couldn't shake the sensation that the walls of the room were shrinking in on her.
"You must have marvelous contacts."
Again she scanned the room. She couldn't watch the way he was fondling the nude.
"You do much of the traveling and acquiring?"
"Not as much as I'd like. Over the years I've had to delegate that pleasure, but I take the occasional trip to the Orient or Europe. I even get to the East Coast from time to time."
"I hope you'll let me return your hospitality if you're ever in Philadelphia."
"I wouldn't think of taking the trip without paying you a call."
"Then I hope you find the time to come East soon. It was a wonderful meal, Edmund, a delightful evening." She rose to play her final scene, the contented guest taking a reluctant leave.
"Believe me, it was my pleasure."
He stood, took her hand, and kissed it gallantly at the knuckles.
"I'd be happy to arrange for my car to take you to the airport tomorrow."
"That's so nice." It made her feel ashamed of the urge she had to rub her hand clean on her jacket. "But I've already arranged transportation. Please call me if there's any news about DeCarlo."
"I will. I have a feeling it will all be sorted out very soon."
When she returned to the Beverly Hills Hotel, Dora waited until the limo had driven away, then simply stood on the sidewalk breathing slowly and waiting to calm. She didn't want to face Jed until she had herself under control. She felt idiotic to be shaken. Though she knew she would have to tell him how the evening had affected her, she wanted to be cool and precise when she did so. Then she saw the dark sedan pull up across the street, and the man with the gray suit. On a skitter of panic, she bolted into the lobby. "Jumping at shadows, Conroy," she berated herself while her heartbeat roared in her ears. Chin up. She punched the button for the elevator. It was just jet lag. It helped a great deal to believe it. She was overtired and overstressed. Once she'd gotten through relaying everything to Jed, she'd get a good night's sleep and be fine again. By the time she'd ridden up to her floor and slipped the key into the lock, she had herself back in line. She was even able to smile when she walked in and saw Jed scowling out of the window. "Ah, you waited up for me."
"You're always good for a laugh, Conroy. You really ought to—"
He broke off after he'd turned and gotten a look at her. He hadn't known anyone could appear so exhausted and still stand on both feet. "What?" Such were her nerves that she groped at her throat and stepped back. "What is it?"
"Nothing. My mind was wandering. Have a seat."
"I'd just as soon get out of this dress first."
Habit had her going to the closet for a hanger. "Let me give you a hand."
He tugged down the zipper for her. Casually, he gave her shoulders a quick massage and found them, as he'd suspected, knotted with tension.
"You want a nightgown or something?"
"Or something." She sat tiredly on the edge of the bed to remove her hose. "You had something for dinner, didn't you?"
"I'm a big boy now, Conroy."
He unhooked the black strapless bra, tossed it aside, then slipped the thin nightshirt over her head. "We had duck."
"Beats the hell out of my cheeseburger."
"It was excellent. The house, really, you should see it. It's immense, with all these lofty rooms leading into other lofty rooms. I've never seen so many museum-quality pieces in one place." When her eyes began to droop, she shook her head. "I need to wash my face. You should see if you can get some kind of financial report on EF Incorporated. In the bathroom, she ran the water cold, scooping it up with both hands to splash on her face. The butler served coffee out of a Meissen worth 12,000. She yawned and splashed more water. And a paperweight in the library, an Elmerick Walter. I watched one go at Christie's a couple of years ago for 15 big ones. Plus this, I don't want an inventory. Sorry. After choosing a tube from the bathroom counter, she began creaming off her makeup. I've never seen a collection to compare with it, never heard of one to compare with it. You can't even call it a collection, really. It's more of a private little empire. Dutifully, she dabbed on moisturizer. And there was something odd about the way he showed it to me. In what way? Like he was waiting for me to do something, say something. She shook her head. I don't know. I can't explain exactly, but the atmosphere was different than it had been in his office. Her eyes met his in the mirror. There were faint bruises of fatigue under hers and a fragility to her skin now that it was without the shield of cosmetics. He spooked me, Jed. He was a perfect gentleman, a perfect host, and being alone with him terrified me. Tell me. He combed a hand through her hair. It doesn't have to make sense. Relieved, she nodded and walked back in to sit on the side of the bed. He took me all through the house, she began, and like I said, there was something off about the way he showed off his pieces. A handful of them in particular. I could feel him watching me when I looked at them, and it was like watching someone masturbate. I kept telling myself I was imagining it because he was being so charming. We had dinner, this elegant dinner in this elegant room on elegant china, and we discussed art and music and so forth. He never touched me in a way that wasn't perfectly correct, but she laughed a little. I'd really appreciate it if you wouldn't say I was being an over-imaginative female when I tell you this, because that's exactly how I feel. But I felt as though he was seeing me naked. We're spooning up this incredibly delicate soufflé with Georgian silver, and I felt as though he could see right through my dress. I have no explanation for it, just that unshakable and very creepy feeling. Maybe he was thinking of you that way. Men do, even elegant ones. She could only shake her head. No, it wasn't like that. Not really sexual on either side. It was more like being defenseless. You were alone. Not really, or not often. He has an army of servants. I wasn't really afraid that he'd hurt me. I was afraid he wanted to, and there was that business in the bathroom. He took you into the bathroom? No. I went into the powder room after dinner. I was freshening my makeup, and I kept feeling like he was right there, watching over my shoulder. She blew out a breath, grateful that Jed didn't snort and tell her she was being a fool. I honestly didn't think he had anything to do with this whole business after I'd left his office this afternoon. And now, I don't know what to think. I do know that I wouldn't want to go back into that house even if he offered me my pick of his pomanders, which, I might add, were wonderful. You don't have to go back. We'll see if the IRS wants to poke a few fingers into Finley's pie. Good. There was a throbbing over her left eye she couldn't quite rub away. You might see what you can find out about a sapphire brooch, possibly 16th century. The stone looked to be about 8 carats in a horizontal setting of gold filigree with some small round-cut diamonds. He made a real issue of showing it to me. Fine. You did good. Yeah. She gave him a sleepy smile. Do I get a detective's gold star? That's gold shield, Nancy. And no, you're retiring. Good. You want something for that headache? She stopped rubbing her temple long enough to grimace. Morphine, but I didn't bring any along. I do have something less effective in my makeup bag. I'll get it. Stretch out. She took him up on it without bothering to crawl under the sheets. I forgot. I saw this guy in a dark sedan. God, that sounds like a Charlie Chan movie. Anyway, I saw him pull out after the limo when we left. Then he drove up a few minutes after I got back. I don't know why Finley would have me followed to and from his house, though. He didn't. I did. Where the hell do you keep pills? You got all these little bottles. The pills aren't in a bottle. They're in a box. What we call a pill box in the trade.
Smart ass.
The little one with the enameled violets. What do you mean you had me followed?
I've had you tailed all day. Local PI.
She was smiling when he walked out with the pills. Almost as good as flowers, she murmured. You hired a bodyguard for me.
I hired him for me,
he said lightly. After pillowing her head on her folded arms, she shut her eyes. Straddling her, he began to rub her neck and shoulders.
Relax, Conroy. You don't get rid of a stress headache by tensing up.
But his fingers were already working their magic. Jed. Her voice was a thick murmur, hardly audible.
Yeah?
Mirrors. I forgot. He has dozens of them. You couldn't walk into a room without seeing yourself coming and going.
So he's vain.
I've got a cheval glass I could probably sell him.
Shut up, Conroy. You're off the clock.
Okay, but I don't think he just likes to watch himself. I think he likes to watch.
Okay, he's a vain pervert.
He ran the heels of his hands down the sides of her spine. I know, that doesn't make him a smuggler. I wish...
Wish what?
But whatever she wished, it would remain unsaid. She was asleep. Quietly he turned down the covers and, lifting her, slipped her between the sheets. She never stirred. Jed studied her a moment before he turned off the lights, got in bed beside her. After a little while, he gathered her close to hold her while he joined her in sleep. Because his arms were around her, her first shudders awakened him. Instinctively he tightened his grip, his hands soothing at her neck.
Hey, Dora, come on, pull out of it.
He heard her gasping gulp of air, and her body trembled hard as she broke through the surface of the dream.
Bad one, huh?
He murmured. She responded by pressing her face to his chest. Can you reach the light? I need the light.
Sure.
Keeping an arm firm around her, he shifted to grope for the switch. The light flashed, cutting through the unrelieved dark.
Better?
Yeah.
But she continued to shiver. Want some water?
No.
The instant panic in the word had her biting down on her lip.
Just stay right here, okay?
Okay.
And don't let go.
I won't.
And because he didn't, her fluttering heart began to settle again. That was the first nightmare I've had since I reread Stephen King's The Shining.
Scary book.
Though his eyes were far from calm, the kiss he brushed over her hair was light and easy.
Too bad about the movie.
Yeah. Her laugh was shaky, but it was a laugh. I didn't know you went in for horror stuff, Skimmerhorn.
It relieves tension. It's tough to worry about life's little problems when you're reading about kitty vampires or The Walking Dead.
I've always been a sucker for The Walking Dead. Because he didn't ask, didn't press, she found herself able to tell him. I was in that house, Finley's house. All those rooms and mirrors, all those things, those beautiful things. Did you ever read Something Wicked?
Bradbury, sure.
In the carnival, that house of mirrors? Remember, if you bought a ticket, they promised you'd find what you wanted inside. But it was a very nasty trick. That's what it was like. I wanted to see all those beautiful things. Then I couldn't get out. DeCarlo was in there too, and Finley. Every time I turned, one of them was there, reflected all around me. I kept running into walls of glass. Taking comfort in the heat of Jed's body, the press of muscle, she cuddled closer. I feel like a jerk.
You shouldn't. I've had some buttes.
You have? Intrigued, she tilted her head to study his face. Really?
My rookie year, I responded to a shots fired. I was lucky enough to be first on the scene of a murder-suicide.
He didn't add that what was left of a human head after a shotgun blast was not a pretty sight.
My subconscious pulled that little scene out on me in the middle of the night for weeks after. And after Elaine, he hesitated, then continued. I kept reliving that, running across the lawn, through the roses, watching her turn her head to look at me, the sound of the blast when she turned the key.
I'll take the kitty vampires any day."
"Yeah, me too."
They lay for a moment in silence.
"Jed,
"Hmm?"
you want to see if there's an old horror movie on TV?"
"Conroy, it's nearly 6 in the morning."
"It's too dark to be nearly 6 in the morning."
"The drapes are closed."
"Oh."
"Tell you what." He shifted, rolling on top of her and catching her chin between his teeth. "Why don't I show you something really scary?"
She chuckled and slipped her arms around his neck just as the phone shrilled beside them. Her heart shot to her throat and pushed out a shriek.
"Hold that thought,"
he murmured, then lifted the receiver.
"Skimmerhorn."
"Jed, sorry to wake you."
But the edge of excitement in Brent's voice had nothing to do with apology.
"I've got something you might want to check out."
"Yeah?"
Automatically, Jed rolled over and picked up the pen from the nightstand.
"I just picked up a fax from the sheriff's department out there. A couple of hikers stumbled over a body a few days ago wedged in a shallow ravine in the hills. There was enough left for a couple of prints. We can stop looking for DeCarlo. He's real dead."
"How long?"
"They're having a tough time pinpointing it, given the exposure and the wildlife. Sometime around the 1st of the year. Since you're out there, I figured you might want to talk to the coroner, the investigating officers."
"Give me the names."
Jed wrote down the information.
"I'm going to fax them back as soon as I hang up with you."
Brent continued.
"Tell them that you were on a related investigation out there. They'll be ready for you."
"Thanks, I'll be in touch."
Dora was sitting up in bed, her chin resting on her drawn-up knees, studying Jed when he hung up the phone. "You've got cop all over your face. It's an interesting metamorphosis to witness."
"Why don't you order up some breakfast?"
He was already out of bed and on his way to the shower.
"We're going to have to take a later flight."
"All right." She heard the water start. Her jaw clenched. Tossing back the covers, she marched into the bathroom, yanked back the shower curtain. "It's not enough to give orders, Captain. Some of us recruits require minimal information."
"I've got something to check on."
He scooped up the soap.
"In or out, Conroy? You're getting water all over the floor."
"What do you have to check on?" He decided the issue himself by reaching out and tugging the nightshirt over her head. She didn't object when he lifted her up and into the tub with him. Saying nothing, she adjusted the hot water so that it wouldn't blister the skin. She dragged the wet hair out of her eyes. "What do you have to check on?" she repeated.
"DeCarlo,"
he said flatly.
"They've found him."
27. Sheriff Curtis Dearborn harbored an innate distrust of outsiders. Since he considered any member of the LAPD an outsider, an East Coast cop was an entity to be watched with extra care. He was a towering, well-muscled man who wore his uniform proudly starched, kept his sandy mustache well trimmed and lightly waxed, and spit-polished his boots. Beneath his military sense of polish and style lurked a well of country boy charm that he used cleverly and with great success. He rose from his desk when Jed and Dora entered. His square, handsome face was set in serious lines. His handshake was dry and firm.
"Skimmerhorn, pretty handy you being out our way when we identify the John Doe."
Jed summed up his man instantly. Dearborn was going to be territorial. Jed's first move was to acknowledge Dearborn's authority.
"I appreciate your passing on the information, Sheriff. I'm sure Lieutenant Chapman filled you in on the mess we've got back home. This quick work on your part will be some comfort to Officer Trainor's widow."
It was exactly the right button. Dearborn's eyes frosted, his mouth thinned.
"Your lieutenant told me the corpse was a cop killer. I'm only sorry the coyotes didn't take more of an interest in him. Sit down, Captain. Miss Conroy?"
"Thanks." Stemming in patience, Jed took a seat. If he rushed Dearborn, it would probably cost him hours of time in diplomacy.
"I was told there was no identification on the body." "Not a lick."
Dearborn's chair creaked comfortably as he sat back.
"But we ruled out robbery right off. The wallet was gone, but the guy had a diamond on his pinky and one of those gold chains around his neck. Dearborn sneered just enough to let Jed know he considered such trappings suspiciously unmasculine. The body wasn't in such good shape, but I didn't need the coroner to tell me how he bought it. He'd been gut-shot. Not much blood on the tarp he'd been wrapped in, though. Stands to reason the body'd been moved after it bled to death. Probably took a good long nasty time. Begging your pardon, ma'am, he said for Dora's benefit. Coroner confirmed it. I'd like a look at the coroner's report, if that's all right, Jed began, and any physical evidence you've gathered. The more I go back with, the better. Dearborn drummed his fingers on the desk as he considered. East Coast wasn't pushy, he decided. I think we can accommodate you there. We've got the tarp and what's left of his clothes downstairs. I'll have the rest of the paperwork brought in after you've finished. If you want to look at the body, we'll take a run down to the coroner's. I'd appreciate that if Miss Conroy could wait here, he said as Dora started to rise. It's fine. Dearborn admired a woman who knew her place. You just make yourself comfortable. Thank you, Sheriff. I wouldn't want to get in the way. The sarcasm was thinly veiled, but Dearborn wasn't a man for subtleties. May I use my credit card to make a call? Help yourself. Dearborn gestured toward the phone on his desk. Use line 1. Thank you. There was no use being annoyed with Jed, she mused. In any case, while he was off doing cop things, she could let her family know she was being delayed a few hours. After Jed and Dearborn trooped off, she settled behind Dearborn's desk, and she smiled. She wondered if Jed realized that Dearborn had called him Captain, and that Jed hadn't even winced at the title. He'll have his badge back by spring, she predicted, and wondered what Jed Skimmerhorn would be like when he was completely happy.
Good afternoon, Dora's parlor.
You've got a great voice, honey. Ever think about phone sex? Leah answered with a rich chuckle.
All the time. Hey, where are you? At 30,000 feet?
No. Dora pushed back her hair and sent a smile to the officer who carried in a mug of coffee and a file folder. Thank you, Sergeant, she said, deliberately mistaking his rank. Oh, he's just deputy, ma'am. But he flushed and grinned. And you're welcome.
Sergeant? What, are you in jail or something? Do I have to post bond?
Not yet. She picked up the mug, tapping a finger idly against the file the deputy had set on the desk. Just taking care of a little business Jed wanted to handle while we were here. No need to mention dead guys and gut shots, she mused. No need at all. So we'll be taking a later plane. Everything there okay?
Everything's fine. We sold the Sherborne desk this morning.
Oh. As always, with a particularly loved piece, Dora felt the twin tugs of pleasure and regret.
No haggling either.
The smug pride came through.
Oh, how did your meeting go?
Meeting?
With the import-export guy.
Oh. Hedging, Dora thumbed at the file tab. It went. I don't think we'll be doing business after all. He's out of my league.
Well, I don't suppose you'd consider the trip a waste. See any movie stars?
Not a one, sorry.
Oh, well, you had Jed along to help you soak up the L.A. sunshine.
There was that. She didn't add that she calculated she'd spent more time with Jed on the plane than she had since they'd landed.
Call me when you get in so I'll know you're safe and sound.
All right, Mommy. I don't imagine we'll make it much before 10 your time, so don't start worrying until after 11.
I'll try to restrain myself. Oh, I should warn you, Mom's planning on having an informal gathering so she can check Jed out on a more personal level. I thought you should know.
Thanks a lot. Sighing, Dora idly flipped open the folder. I'll try to prepare Jed for... Her mouth went dust dry as she stared down at the photo. Through the buzzing in her head, she heard her sister's voice.
Dora? Dory? Are you still there? Shoot, did we get cut off?
No. With a Herculean effort, Dora leveled her voice. Even when she lifted her gaze to stare at the wall, the photo's grim image remained imprinted on her mind. Sorry, I have to go. I'll call you later.
Okay. See you tomorrow, honey. Safe trip.
Thanks. Bye. Very gently, very deliberately, Dora replaced the receiver. Her hands had gone icy cold beneath a sheer layer of sweat. Breathing shallowly, she looked back down. It was DiCarlo. There was enough of his face left for her to be sure of that. She was also sure that he hadn't died well, that he hadn't died easy. With numb fingers, she shifted the first police photo aside and stared at the second. She knew now just how viciously cruel death could be to human flesh. No amount of Hollywood horror fantasies had prepared her for this ghastly reality. She could see where the bullet had ripped, where the animals had feasted. The desert sun had been every bit as merciless as the bullet and the carrion. The color photo was both lurid and dispassionate. She couldn't stop looking, couldn't take her eyes away, even when the buzzing in her head became a roar. She couldn't stop looking even when her vision blurred and grayed, until the bloated body seemed to float off the surface of the photo toward her horrified eyes. Jed let out one concise oath when he walked in and saw her white face in the open file. Even as he strode toward her, he watched her eyes roll back. He had her chair pushed away from the desk and her head between her knees in 2 brisk moves. Just breathe slow. His voice was drum-tight, but the hand on the back of her head was gentle as he reached up and slapped the file closed. I was calling Leah. Dora swallowed desperately as her stomach heaved. Bile tickled gleefully in the back of her throat. I was just calling Leah. Keep your head down, he ordered, and breathe. Try a little of this. Dearborn held out a glass of water to Jed. There was sympathy in his voice. He remembered his first murder victim. Most good cops did. There's a cot in the back room if she wants to stretch out. She'll be all right. Jed kept the pressure light on Dora's head as he accepted the water. Would you give us a minute, Sheriff? Sure. Take your time, Dearborn added before he closed the door behind him. I want you to come up real slow, Jed told her. If you feel faint again, put your head back down. I'm okay. But the trembling was worse than the nausea and much more difficult to control. She let her head fall back against the chair and kept her eyes closed. I guess I've made a lasting impression on the sheriff. Try some of this. He brought the cup to her lips, urging her to swallow. I want you to feel better before I yell at you. You might have to wait a while. She opened her eyes as she sipped. Yes, his were angry, she realized, really angry, but she couldn't worry about that just yet. How can you face that? She said softly. How can you possibly face that on a regular basis? He dipped his fingers in the cool water and rubbed them on the back of her neck. Do you want to lie down? No, I don't want to lie down. She looked away from him. And if you have to yell, get it over with. But before you do, you should know I wasn't prying or playing detective. Believe me, I didn't want to see that. I didn't need to see that. Now you can start working on forgetting it. Is that what you do? She made herself look at him again. Do you just file this sort of thing away and forget it? We're not talking about me. You have no business being this close, Dora. I have no business? She moistened her dry lips and set the cup aside before she forced herself to stand. The man inside that file tried to rape me. He would certainly have killed me. That brings me pretty goddamn close. Even knowing that, knowing what he did and what he tried to do, I can't justify what I saw in those pictures. I just can't. I guess I want to know if you can. He'd seen enough to know just what kind of afterimage she'd be carrying with her. He'd seen enough to know it was worse than most. I don't justify, Dora. If you want to know if I can live with it, then yeah, I can. I can look at it. I can go down to the coroner's right now and take a good long look at the real thing. And I can live with it. She nodded, then walked shakily to the door. I'm going to wait in the car. Jed waited until she was gone before he picked up the file and studied the photos. He swore, not at what he saw, but at what Dora had seen. She okay?
Dearborn asked as he came back in.
She'll do.
He handed the file over.
I'd like to take you up on your offer of talking to the coroner. Guess you want to see the stiff, too. I'd appreciate it. No problem.
Dearborn picked up his hat, settled it on his head.
You can read the autopsy report on the way. It's interesting. Our pal had a hell of a last meal.
Dora refused the snack the flight attendant offered and stuck with icy ginger ale. Her system balked at even the thought of food. She did her best to ignore the scents of deli meat and mayo as the other passengers dug in. She'd had a lot of time to think, stretched out on the front seat of the rental car while Jed had been with Dearborn. Time enough to realize that she'd taken her shock and revulsion out on him, and he hadn't taken his anger out on her. "You haven't yelled at me yet." Jed continued to work his crossword puzzle. He'd have preferred to read through Dearborn's reports again, but they would wait until he was alone.
It didn't seem worth it.
"I'd rather you did, so you'd stop being mad at me."
I'm not mad at you.
Could have fooled me. She wasn't certain what she was feeling herself, only knew it had to be put behind them. "You've hardly spoken since we left L.A., and if I hadn't been making a fool of myself in the sheriff's office, you'd have torn into me." His eyes flicked up from his paper to meet her strained smile. "You wanted to?"
Yeah, I wanted to. But I wasn't mad at you. I was mad because you'd seen those pictures. Because I knew you'd walk through a door you wouldn't close easily, and never completely. There was nothing I could do about it.
She put a hand over his. "I can't go as far as saying I'm glad I opened that file, but you were right, it brings me closer. I think I'd handle it all better if you told me what you found out from Sheriff Dearborn and at the coroner's. Speculation can be even worse than reality."
There isn't that much to tell.
But he let the paper fall into his lap.
We know DiCarlo flew out to the coast on New Year's Eve, rented a car, booked a hotel room. He didn't sleep in the room that night. He didn't return the car. That hasn't turned up yet either. Apparently, he'd also booked a flight for Cancun, but he didn't use the ticket.
So he didn't plan on coming back east any time soon. She left her hand over his as she tried to think it through. "Do you think he came out to see Finley?"
If he did, he didn't sign in. There's no record of him going to the offices on that date. If we go by the theory that he was working for himself, DiCarlo might have run into some bad luck on his way out of the country. Or he could have had a partner, a business disagreement.
"Makes me glad I'm in business for myself," Dora murmured.
Or choice number 3, and my personal favorite, he worked for Finley, came out to report, and Finley killed him, or had him killed.
But why? DiCarlo hadn't finished the job, had he? I still had the painting.
That might be the reason,
Jed shrugged.
But there's no physical evidence to link Finley to any of it at this point. We know DiCarlo came to L.A., and he died there. He was murdered sometime between December 31st and January 2nd, as far as the coroner can pinpoint at this time. He died from a single gunshot wound to the abdomen, then, from the lack of blood on the tarp, was moved several hours later. Someone had the presence of mind to take his wallet to slow up the identification, if and when the body was found. The bruises on the face were several days old. I put them there myself. Other traumas occurred after death.
He couldn't bring himself to tell her that DiCarlo had also been kneecapped. "I see." To keep her voice clear and steady, she continued to sip the ginger ale like medicine. "That's like no signs of struggle, right?"
"That's right, Miss Drew."
He gave her hand an approving squeeze. She was toughing it out, he thought, and admired her for it.
The condemned man had enjoyed a hearty last meal that had included pheasant, a considerable amount of wine, and raspberries with white chocolate.
Nope, Dora thought as her stomach curdled. She definitely wouldn't be eating any time soon. "Then one would assume," she began, pressing her free hand surreptitiously to her roiling stomach, "that the deceased was relaxed before he died."
Kind of tough to put away a meal like that if you're tense. Dearborn's going to have his hands full checking restaurant menus.
There were also some white stones and mulch found rolled up in the tarp, the kind you find in flower beds and around ornamental shrubs. I wonder how many flower beds there are in the L.A. area. I told you police work was tedious. Did Finley have gardens? Extensive ones. She let out a shaky breath. He's very proud of them and was disappointed that there was a cloud cover so he couldn't show them to me properly in natural starlight. I admired part of them from his solarium. Her color had drained again when she turned to look at Jed, but her voice was level. They were very neat and tidy, well mulched with narrow pathways of white stone. You've got good eyes, Conroy. He leaned over and kissed her. Now close them for a while. I think I'd be better off watching the movie. She reached unsteadily for the headphone. What did they say it was? It's the new Costner flick. Jed plugged the cord in for her. I think he plays a cop. Perfect, Dora sighed, slipped on the headphones, and escaped. In L.A., Winesap entered Finley's office. Timid men, like small dogs, often sense the mood of their master by the scent of the air. Winesap was wringing his hands. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Finley?" Without looking up from his paperwork, Finley gestured Winesap in. With a stroke of his pen, he initialed changes in a contract that would eliminate nearly 200 jobs. His eyes were blank when he sat back. "How long have you worked for me, Abel?" "Sir?" Winesap moistened his lips. 8 years now." 8 years. Nodding slowly, Finley steepled his index fingers and tapped his top lip. "A fair amount of time. Are you happy in your work, Abel? You feel you're well treated, well compensated?" "Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. You're very generous, Mr. Finley." "I like to think so. And just, Abel. Do you find me a just man as well?" "Always." Unbidden, the image of DeCarlo's bloody body flashed into his brain. "Without exception, sir." "I've been thinking of you this morning, Abel, all through the morning and into the afternoon, and as I did so, it occurred to me that over these 8 years, did you say?" "Yes, 8. Winesap began to feel like a spider stunned by a hornet. 8 years. "That over these 8 years," Finley continued, "I've had very little cause to criticize your work. You are prompt, you are efficient, you are, in most cases, thorough." "Thank you, sir." But Winesap only heard the words, "most cases." He felt fear. "I do my best." "I believe you do, which is why I find myself so disappointed today. I believe you did your best, and it wasn't quite enough." "Sir!" Winesap's voice was a squeak. "You perhaps haven't found the time in your busy schedule to read the morning paper." "I glanced at the headlines," Winesap said apologetically. "Things have been a bit hectic." "One should always make time for current events." With his eyes glittering on Winesap's face, Finley stabbed a finger at the newspaper on his desk. "Such as this. Read it now, Abel, if you will." "Yes, sir." All but shaking in terror, Winesap approached the desk and took the paper. The article Finley referred to was circled over and over again in blood-red ink. "Body discovered by hikers," Winesap began, and felt his bowels loosen. "An unidentified body was discovered several days ago in a ravine." Finley snatched the paper away with a snap. "Your reading voice is weak, Abel. Let me do it for you." In flowing, melodious tones, Finley read the sketchy report, ending with a standard line about the police investigating. "Of course," he added, smoothing the paper out on his desk, "we would be able to identify the body, wouldn't we, Abel?" "Mr. Finley, sir, it was found miles from here. No one would possibly—" He cringed, lowering his eyes. "I expected better from you, Abel. That was my mistake. You were not thorough." he said, spacing each word carefully. "They will, of course, identify the body sooner or later, and I will be forced to answer more questions. Naturally, I'm confident that I can handle the police, but the inconvenience, Abel. I really believe you should have spared me this inconvenience." "Yes, sir. I'm terribly sorry." Winesap thought of the miserable drive into the mountains, the hideous trek with the body dragging behind him. His shoulders sagged. "I can't apologize enough." No, I don't believe you can. However, since I have considered your work record carefully and found no unsightly blemishes, I will try to overlook this one. You'll be leaving for the East in a day or two, Abel. I trust you'll handle Miss Conroy with more finesse than you handled Mr. DiCarlo." "Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll be thorough." "I'm sure you will." Finley offered a glittering smile that made Winesap think of sharks feeding. "We'll put this unfortunate mistake out of our minds. I don't believe we need to discuss it again." "That's very understanding of you, Mr. Finley." Cautious, Winesap backed out of the room. "Thank you." "Oh, and Abel." Finley enjoyed watching the man stop on a dime and cringe. "I really think, under the circumstances, you should return the caddy spoon." "Oh." Winesap's face fell. "Of course." In much better spirits, Finley leaned back as the door closed respectfully. He'd been in a state of mental turmoil since reading the article, and now calmed himself by doing his deep breathing exercises. There was nothing quite like yoga for soothing the soul. He would have to keep a closer eye on Abel, he thought sadly. A much closer eye. If things got too sticky over to Carlo, he would simply throw dear, devoted Abel to the wolves like so much dead meat. But he sincerely hoped it wouldn't be necessary. He wasn't worried for himself. When a man was rich enough and powerful enough, Finley mused, he was above the common reach of the law. The police couldn't touch him. No one could. And if by some minor miracle they came too close, there would always be small prey, like Abel, to throw off their scent. But he was a forgiving man. Smiling, Finley took the étui he'd brought back to his office with him from his desk and fondled it. A very forgiving man, sometimes to a fault. As long as Abel followed instructions carefully and managed Miss Conroy, there would be no need to kill him. No need at all. 28. It was good to be home in the simple routines of each day. Dora comforted herself with that, and tried not to think of the meeting with Mr. Petroy she still had to face. She hadn't realized she was ordinary enough, mundane enough, to wish for a lack of adventure. But the bald truth was, she wanted her simple life back. More, she wanted the chance to be bored. At least Jed hadn't noticed her lack of appetite. Dora was certain he'd have made a few choice remarks if she hadn't covered it so well. The same held true for the female art of cosmetics. Her eyes might have been shadowed, her skin pale and drawn, but with facials and creams and powders, she presented a very competent mask. She hoped it didn't slip until after Thursday. She was rubbing at the throbbing between her eyes that the doses of aspirin couldn't seem to ease when the shop door opened. Nothing could have made her happier than her father's smiling and slightly tipsy face.
"Izzy, my sweet."
"Dad, my own true love." She stepped away from the counter to kiss him, then found herself pressing her face against his shoulder and hugging him fiercely. He returned the embrace. Though concern clouded his eyes, they were smiling again when he drew back.
"All alone, little girl?"
"Not any more. It's been a slow morning. Want some coffee?"
"Half a cup,"
he speculated, watching her move to the coffee service and pour. He knew his children, their faces, the tones of their voices, the subtleties of their body language. Isadora was hiding something, he mused. He would find out what easily enough.
"Your mother sends me as an ambassador."
He accepted the cup, then pulled out his flask to add a generous dollop of whiskey. to extend an invitation to cocktails and conversation to you and your young man."
"If you're referring to Jed, I think he might object to the description, but accept the invitation. When?"
"Thursday night."
His brow lifted as he saw something flicker over her face.
"Pre-theater, of course."
"Of course. I'll be happy to check with him."
"I'll extend the invitation myself. Is he upstairs?"
"No, I think he's out." She sipped her coffee, grateful when a couple of window shoppers passed on without coming in. "You can check with him later if you like." Quentin watched her toy with the sugar bowl.
"Have you had a lover's tiff?"
"We don't tiff." She managed to smile. "We do fight now and then, but tiffing isn't part of our ritual." She picked up a cookie, put it down again. "You know, I'm feeling a little restless today. Do you want to take a walk?"
"With a beautiful woman? Always."
"Let me get my coat." Quentin's eyes narrowed in speculation, wondering if his hand-picked partner was making his little girl so unsettled. But he was all smiles again when she returned, buttoning her coat.
"I seem to recall someone who enjoys busman's holidays. Perhaps we should take a little ride over to Newmarket and check out some shop windows." "My hero."
Dora flipped the close sign over, then hooked her arm through her father's. He bought her jelly beans, and she didn't have the heart not to eat them. They stayed outside, enjoying the cold and the cobblestones, the cosmopolitan air of the window displays. Dora knew she was feeling better when she was tempted by both a Limoges box and a cashmere sweater. The wind whistled through the bare trees as they sat on a bench to enjoy more coffee. Quentin's was again stiffly laced.
"Shall I buy you a present?" he asked. "It always made you smile when you talked me into some little trinket."
"I've always been mercenary, haven't I?" Amused at herself, she leaned her head companionably on his shoulder.
"You've always loved pretty things and appreciated them as well. That's a gift, Izzy, not a flaw."
She felt foolish tears prick at her eyes. "I guess I'm having a mood. I always thought Will had the moods."
"All of my children had wonderful moods," Quentin said staunchly. "It's the theater in your blood. Artists are never easy, you know. We aren't meant to be."
"What about cops?" He paused a moment to drink, to enjoy.
"I see law enforcement as an art as well. Some would say science, of course, but the timing, the choreography, the drama, yes, it's quite an art." He draped a comforting arm around her. "Tell me what you're feeling, Izzy."
And she could. She had always been able to tell him what she felt without fear of criticism or disapproval. "I'm so in love with him. I want to be happy about it. I nearly am most of the time. But he doesn't trust those kind of emotions. He doesn't have any experience with them. His parents didn't give him anything of what you and Mom gave us." She sighed and watched a young mother wheel a stroller over the stones. The toddler inside was rosy-cheeked and laughing. The yearning tug came quickly, with equal parts surprise and discomfort. "I want to do that," she realized. "I want to spend an hour pushing my child in the sunlight and smiling." "I'm afraid we can't give each other what we need," she said carefully.
"First, you have to discover what those needs are."
Wistfully, she watched mother and child roll away. "I think I have a pretty good handle on mine." "How can you expect a man whose childhood was a study in misery to take the first step toward creating a family of his own? It isn't fair for me to push him toward that step, and it isn't fair for me to deny myself taking it."
"Do you think only people from happy families make happy families of their own?"
"I don't know."
"Jed's grandmother seems to think he's already taken that first step, and is cautiously debating over the second."
"I don't—" She stopped, straightened to frown at her father. "His grandmother? You've spoken to her?"
"Ria, your mother and I had a very nice visit while you were in California. A lovely woman," he added. "She's quite taken with you."
Dora's eyes slitted. "It appears I have to remind you that I'm a competent adult, and so is Jed. I don't think it's right that you would sit around discussing us as though we were slow-witted children."
"But you are our children."
He smiled benignly and patted her flushed cheek.
"When you have children of your own, you'll understand that the love never stops, and neither does the concern, the pride, or the interference."
He beamed at her.
"I love you, Izzy, and I have great faith in you."
He pinched her chin.
"Now, tell me what else is worrying you."
"I can't." And she was sorry for it. "But I can tell you. It should be resolved in a few days."
"I won't pry,"
he said. At least not when she was so obviously on her guard.
"But if you don't look happier soon, I'll sick your mother on you."
"I'm smiling." She bared her teeth. "See, I couldn't be happier." Satisfied for the moment, he rose. After tossing his empty cup in a wastebasket, he held out a hand.
"Let's go shopping." "She's a ball of nerves."
Jed met Brent in the gym so that he could release some tension by pummeling the heavy bag.
"She won't admit it, but she's tied up inside."
More than a little tied up himself, Jed gave the bag a rapid series of sharp punches. As he'd been delegated to hold the bag steady, Brent grunted as the power sang up his arms.
"I'm not helping. We're moving on it as fast as we can."
Brent felt sweat trickle down his shirt and wished he'd talked Jed into meeting at some nice coffee shop.
"After Thursday's meet, we should be able to keep her out of it."
"It's not just that."
Jed moved from the heavy bag to the light, relieving Brent immeasurably. Eyes narrowed. Jed sent the bag flying into a blur.
"She's in love with me."
Brent took off his glasses to clean the lenses of fog.
"Is that supposed to be news?"
"She needs more than I can give her. She should have more."
"Maybe. Is she complaining?"
"No."
Jed blinked sweat out of his eyes and kept his fists flying.
"Then relax and enjoy the ride."
Jed whirled on him so swiftly, so violently, that Brent braced for the blow.
"It's not a fucking ride. It's not like that with Dora. It's—"
He broke off, furious at the smug smile creasing Brent's face.
"Don't play me,"
he said very softly.
"Just testing the waters, Captain."
When Jed turned over his gloves, Brent obligingly unlaced them.
"Speaking of which, the unofficial word is that you'll be back in command the first of the month. Goldman's sulking."
"He'll feel better when I sign his transfer papers."
"Oh, let me worship at your feet."
A grin tugged at Jed's mouth as he flexed his fist.
"We'll make an official announcement on Monday, and if you try to kiss me in here, pal, I'll have to deck you."
He picked up a towel to dry his face.
"For now, Goldman's in charge. Is everything set for Thursday?"
"We'll have 2 men in the shop, another pair outside, and a surveillance van a half-block away. As long as Dora follows instructions, we'll pick up every word."
"She'll follow them."
Spending an hour with her father had given Dora a need for family. She indulged it by closing the shop an hour early and spending the evening at Leah's. The din from the family room soothed her soul.
"I think Richie's definitely improving on the trumpet," Dora commented.
Head cocked, Leah listened to the wet musical blats with a mixture of pride and resignation. "There's a band concert at school in 3 weeks. I'm saving you a front-row seat."
"God bless you."
There was a series of muffled thumps from the next room, what was, if you had enough imagination, a stirring cavalry charge and an excellent rebel yell.
"I needed this."
Content, Dora slipped onto a stool by the counter. "I'd be happy to leave you in charge for a couple hours." Leah added another touch of burgundy to the stew she had simmering.
"I don't need it that much."
Dora drank a hurried sip of wine. "No, I spent some time with Dad this afternoon, and it made me think what it would be like if he wasn't so handy, that's all. Something's going on." Frowning, Leah tapped the spoon on the side of the pot, set it on a spoon rest shaped like a duck. "You've got that line between your eyebrows, and you're pale. You always get pale when you're worried about something. You'd be worried, too, if you had to find a new accountant right before end of January inventory." "Not good enough."
Leah leaned closer, probing. "You're edgy, Dory, and it has nothing to do with business. If you won't tell me, I'll have to turn Mom loose on you." "Why does everyone threaten me with Mom?" she demanded. "I'm unsettled, okay? My life's taken a couple of odd turns. I'd like my family to respect my privacy enough to allow me to work out my own problems." "Okay, I'm sorry, really." Passing a hand over her face, Dora took a cleansing breath. "No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have snapped at you. I guess I'm still a little jet-lagged. I think I'll go home, take a hot bath, and sleep for 12 hours. If you don't feel better tomorrow, I can come in early." "Thanks. I'll let you know." She started to slide off the stool as the knock sounded on the back door. "Hi," Mary Pat stuck in her head. "I came to pick up my share of the monsters." She listened a moment to the shouting and the blare of the trumpet. "Ah, the patter of little feet. Wonderful, isn't it?" "Have a seat," Leah invited, "unless you're in a hurry." "I'd love a seat," she sighed as she took the one beside Dora. "I've been on my feet for 8 straight hours. We had 2 codes back to back." She took a deep breath of air. "God, how do you manage to raise kids, hold down a job, and cook like that?" "I have an understanding boss." Smiling, Leah poured Mary Pat a glass of wine. "She gave me the day off." "Speaking of work, terrific news about Jed, isn't it?" "What news?" "About him coming back on the job." With her eyes closed, she circled her neck and missed Dora's blank look. "Brent's really flying. He detested Goldman, of course. Who didn't? But it's more than that. The department needs Jed, and Jed needs the department. Now that he's made the decision to come back, it's pretty clear he's got his head on straight again. I don't think he's going to wait until the first of the month to take command either. Otherwise—" One look at Dora's face made Mary Pat stumble to a halt. "Oh, damn. Did I jump the gun? When Brent told me it would be official on Monday, I just assumed you knew." "No, Jed didn't mention it." She fought to work a smile onto her lips, but couldn't make it reach her eyes. "It's good news, though. No, great news. I'm sure it's just what he needs." "How long have you known?" "A couple of days." Idiot, Mary Pat thought, but wasn't sure if she was referring to herself or to Jed. "I'm sure he planned to tell you himself once he, But she couldn't think of any handy excuses. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I really am glad to hear it." After sliding off the stool, Dora reached mechanically for her coat. "I've got to get going." "Stay for dinner," Leah said quickly. "There's plenty." "No, I have some things to do. Say hi to Brent," she told Mary Pat. "Sure." When the door closed, Mary Pat lowered her forehead onto her fisted hands. "I feel like I ran over a puppy. Why the hell didn't he tell her?" "Because he's a jerk." Leah's voice was low with fury. "All men are jerks." "That's a given," Mary Pat agreed. "But this was major, and this was cold. Leah, I've known Jed a long time, and he's not cold. Careful, but not cold. Maybe he forgot the difference." Odd things happen to the mind at 2 o'clock in the morning, particularly to a man who's waiting for a woman. He begins to speculate, to project, to worry, and to sweat. Jed paced his living room, strode through the door he'd propped open, and paced the corridor. As he had numerous times over the last 4 hours, he strode to the back door and stared out at the gravel lot. His car was as alone out there as he was alone inside. There was no sign of Dora. Where the hell was she? He strode back to his apartment to look at the clock, to check its time with his watch. 2:01. If she wasn't home in 10 minutes, he promised himself, he would call in all his markers and put out an APB. He stared at the phone. It wasn't until he'd picked up the receiver that he realized his hand was sweating. Swearing, he slammed the phone back on the cradle. No, he wasn't going to call the hospitals. He wasn't even going to let himself think that way. But where the hell was she? What the hell could she have to do at 2 in the morning? He started to reach for the phone again and stopped as a fresh idea sharpened in his brain. Unless she was paying him back, it was a safe, even a comforting thought, so he played with it. Was this how she'd felt when he'd come in late without leaving any word? Was she doing this to show him how it was to agonize over silence when the person who mattered was out of reach? She wasn't going to get away with it, he decided. She damn well was going to pay for it. But he was reaching for the phone again when he heard her key in the outside lock. He was out in the hall and at the door before she'd opened it. "Where the hell have you been?" The demand burst out of him, ripe with worried fury. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" "Yes." Very deliberately, she closed the door and locked it. "Sorry, I didn't realize I had a curfew." She walked past him, only because he was too stunned to stop her. But he recovered quickly. He caught up with her at the door of her apartment and spun her around. "Just a goddamn minute, Conroy. We'll forget the personal stuff for now. The fact is you're a prime target, and it was incredibly irresponsible of you to be out of contact for half the night." "I'm responsible to and for myself." She jammed the key in the lock and shoved the door open. "And as you can see, I'm perfectly fine." He slapped a hand against the door before she could close it. "You had no right." "Don't tell me about rights," she interrupted, very cool, very calm. "I spent the evening as I chose to spend it." Anger and resentment bubbled inside him. "And how was that?" "Alone." She took off her coat and hung it in the closet. "You did this to get under my skin, didn't you?" "No." She walked past him toward the kitchen to pour a glass of water. "I did it because I wanted to. I'm sorry if you were worried. It didn't occur to me that you would be." "It didn't occur to you?" Incensed, he grabbed the glass out of her hand and tossed it into the sink. It shattered effectively. "Fuck that, Conroy. You knew damn well I'd be half crazy. I was about to call out a goddamn APB. Interesting, isn't it, the way those police terms slide right off your tongue? It's a good thing you're going back on, Skimmerhorn. You make a lousy civilian." Her eyes were as dull as her voice. "Are congratulations in order, Captain? Or just best wishes?" When he didn't respond, she nodded. "Well, you can have both." "It's not official until next week." He spoke carefully, studying her. He'd never seen her eyes that cold or that detached. "How did you find out?" "Does it matter? It's more to the point that I didn't find out from you. Excuse me." She brushed past him and into the living room. He closed his eyes a moment and cursed himself for a fool. "So you're pissed. Okay, but that—" "No," she interrupted. "It's not okay. And I'm not pissed." Because she was tired, unbearably so, she gave in and sat on the arm of a chair. "You could say I've been illuminated. You could even say that I'm devastated. But no, Jet, I'm not angry." The quiet resignation in her voice reached him. "Dora, I didn't do it to hurt you." "I know that. That's why I'm illuminated. You didn't tell me because you didn't think it was any of my concern. You didn't want it to be any of my concern is probably more accurate. It was a major decision in your life." "Your life," she repeated with stinging emphasis. "Not mine. So why should you bother to tell me?" She was slipping away from him. He was standing 2 feet away from her and watching the distance grow by leaps and bounds. It terrified him. "You make it sound as though I was keeping it from you. I needed to work it out, that's all. I didn't think you'd understand." "You didn't give me the chance, Jed," she said quietly. "Did you think I could have felt the way I did about you and not understand how important your work was to you?" Her use of the past tense had a quick skitter of panic sprinting up his spine. "It had nothing to do with you." As soon as the words were out of his mouth, he knew they were ill-chosen. Her eyes remained dry, but hurt filled them. "I didn't mean it that way." "I think you did. I wish I didn't blame you for it, but I do. I know you had it rough,
But you've been making your own choices for a long time. You chose not to accept my feelings for you, and you chose not to let yourself feel anything back. And I don't blame you for that, Jed." Her voice didn't waver. Her eyes remained steady, but the hands in her lap were clenched tight. "I blame you very much for that, and for hurting me. I told you I don't handle pain very well, and I don't pretend it's not there when it is. Since you're the first man who's ever broken my heart, I think you should know it."
"For Christ's sake, Dora." He started toward her, but the way she jumped up and stepped back unmanned him.
"I don't want you to touch me now." She spoke very quietly, clinging to the slippery edge of control. "I really don't. It's humiliating for me to finally understand that's all we had."
"That's not true."
He fisted his hands at his sides, but already knew he couldn't beat his way through the wall he'd thrown up between them.
"You're blowing this out of proportion, Dora. It's just a job."
"I wish it were, but we both know it's not. It's the most important part of your life. You gave it up to punish yourself, and you're taking it back because you can't be happy without it, and maybe not even whole without it. I'm glad for you, Jed. I truly am."
"I don't need the analysis. I need you to stop this and be reasonable."
"I am being reasonable, believe me. So reasonable, I'm going to make it easy for both of us. The day after tomorrow, you should be able to tie up the loose ends about the painting, or most of them. You shouldn't need me after that."
"God damn it, you know I need you."
Her eyes filled then, and she fought back tears like bitter enemies. "You can't imagine what I would have given to hear you say that before. Just once for you to have been able to look at me and say that you needed me. But I'm not a courageous woman, Jed, and I have to protect myself."
No, he couldn't break through the wall she'd put between them, but her hurt could. It snuck through the cracks and battered at him. "What do you want, Dora?"
"When we're finished on Thursday, I intend to close the shop for a couple of weeks, take a trip someplace warm. That should give you plenty of time to find other accommodations and move out."
"That's no way to handle this."
"It's my way, and I figure I'm in the position of calling the shots. I'm sorry, but I don't want you here when I get back."
"Just like that?"
"Yes."
"Fine."
He had his pride. He'd been rejected before. If it burned a hole in him this time, he'd find something to fill it with. But he wouldn't beg. He'd be damned if he'd beg.
"I'll go as soon as things are wrapped up."
Because it hurt. It hurt unbelievably. He covered the wounds with a professional shield.
"There'll be a team in tomorrow after closing. They'll set up the wires. We'll go over procedure when they're done."
"All right. I'm very tired. I'd like you to go now." She walked to the door, held it open.
"Please."
It wasn't until he'd reached her that he realized his hands were unsteady. When he heard the door close behind him, he had the sick and certain feeling that he'd just been shut out of the best part of his life.
29. "What's with you two?"
Brent asked as Jed climbed into the surveillance van. Ignoring the question, Jed pulled out a cigarette.
"How's the sound?"
"Loud and clear." Though Brent offered the headphones, he was far from finished.
"Loud enough and clear enough to hear the two of you talking in there like polite strangers. Don't you think she could have used a little morale boost instead of a lecture on procedure? Drop it."
Jed slipped on the headphones and checked the rear window of the van to be sure he had a clear view of the shop.
"Everybody in place?"
"We're set," Brent assured him.
"Look, maybe you'd feel better if you were on the inside." "She'll be more comfortable if I'm not." "Look, I'll handle my end."
Jed drew deeply on the cigarette.
"You handle yours." "You're not running the show yet, Captain."
The edge of anger in Brent's voice sent off an answering ripple in Jed's blood. Before he could respond, the radio crackled.
"Base, this is Unit 1. A man answering subject's description just got out of a cab on the corner of South and Front Streets. He's walking west."
"Looks like it's showtime," Brent murmured, but Jed was already reaching for the portable phone. Dora answered on the first ring.
Good afternoon, Dora's parlor.
He's half a block away, Jed said flatly. I've got him in view.
All right. Everything's ready here.
Keep loose, Conroy.
Sure.
Dora.
But she'd already broken the connection. Fuck. He said it softly, finally, helplessly.
She can handle it, Jed. Yeah, but I don't know if I can.
He watched Winesap mince hurriedly down the sidewalk, shoulders hunched against the wind.
I just figured out I'm in love with her.
Ignoring the throbbing at the back of his neck, he slipped on the headphones in time to hear the bells jingle as Winesap opened the shop door.
Good afternoon.
Dora stepped away from the counter and offered her best new customer smile. May I help you?
Miss Conroy, I'm Frances Petroy.
She let the smile broaden. Yes, Mr. Petroy, I was expecting you. She walked to the door to flip the closed sign around, her eyes slashed to the van, then away. I'm so glad you could make it. Can I get you some coffee? Tea?
I wouldn't want to trouble you.
Not at all. I always keep both on hand for customers. It makes business so much more pleasant.
I'd love some tea, then.
It might soothe his stomach more than the Alka-Seltzer he'd downed an hour before.
Your shop is very impressive.
Thank you. She saw with satisfaction that her hand was rock steady on the teapot. I like to surround myself with beautiful things, but you'd understand that.
Excuse me?
Being an art collector. She offered him a cup of tea and a smile. Cream? Lemon?
No, nothing, thank you.
You said you specialize in abstract, but you might find some of my nostalgia prints interesting. She gestured to a car manufacturer's sign for a Bugatti, which hung beside a Vargas girl.
Yes, very nice indeed.
I also have several good Vanity Fair caricatures in the other room. Watching him, she sipped her own tea. But as an abstract buff, you'll be more interested in, say, a Bothby or a Clippingdale, she said, making up names.
Yes, of course, exceptional talents.
The tea soured like vinegar in Winesap's stomach. He'd really tried to be thorough by studying book after book on the subject of abstract art, but all the names and pictures swam through his head.
My collection isn't extensive, you see, which is why I concentrate on the emerging artist.
Such as Billingsley.
Exactly, he said on a sigh of relief. I'm very anxious to see the work, Miss Conroy.
Then by all means. She led the way into the side room. Jed's artist friend had worked overtime to reproduce the painting. Now it stood like a gaudy stripper among prim Victorian ladies in the pretty sitting room.
Ah!
The sense of satisfaction was so great, Winesap nearly wept with it. It was horrid, of course, he thought. Absolutely horrid, but it matched the description. Such a bold, arrogant style, Dora commented. I was really taken with it.
Yes, of course. It's everything I'd hoped for.
He made a show of examining the brushstrokes.
I'd very much like to add this to my collection.
I'm sure you would. She let a touch of amusement color her voice. Did you have an offer in mind, Mr. Petroy?
In mind, naturally, he said, trying to be coy. I'd prefer if you'd set a price for negotiation.
I'd be happy to.
Dora sat in a tufted back chair and crossed her legs.
Why don't we start at 250,000? Winesap's prim mouth fell open. He made a choked sound in the back of his throat before he managed to find his voice.
Miss Conroy, you can't be serious.
Oh, but I am. You look as though you need to sit down, Mr. Petroy. She gestured to a petty-point stool. Now let's be frank, she began when he'd sunk onto the seat. You don't know diddly about art, do you?
Well, really?
He tugged at his strangling tie.
As I told you, I have a small collection.
But you lied, Mr. Petroy, she said gently. You haven't a clue about abstract. Wouldn't it be simpler and more friendly If we admitted that we're both more interested at the moment in impressionism rather than expressionism. For a moment he didn't follow her. Then his pasty face blanched. You know about the painting. I bought it, didn't I? Yes, but that was a mistake. His frantic eyes widened. No? You knew? You knew all along about the Monet? You were working with DiCarlo? You cheated? He accused miserably. Dora merely chuckled and leaned forward. You needn't sound so offended. After all, you sent DiCarlo here, didn't you? It's been his fault. Disgusted, Winesap threw up his hands. All this confusion is his fault. I can't imagine why I was sorry he died so badly. The image in the police photo flashed obscenely in her mind. So you killed him, she murmured. For this? But Winesap wasn't listening. Now I have to clean up the entire mess again. I'm not happy about the $250,000, Miss Conroy. Not happy at all. He rose. So did Dora. Even as he reached under his coat, 2 officers were bursting through the rear door. Freeze! Winesap took one look at the guns pointing at him and fainted dead away. His checkbook slipped out of his hand and flapped onto the floor. He was going to pay me for it, Dora said dully. She watched, light-headed, as 2 officers escorted a babbling and cuffed Winesap out of the shop. She hadn't needed to lower her head between her knees, but she remained sitting. It was an even bet as to whether or not her legs would support her. He was going to write me a check. A laugh bubbled out, lightly tinted with hysteria. Jesus Christ! I wonder if I'd have asked him for 2 forms of ID. Here. Jed shoved a cup into her hands. What is it? That tea you drink, with a little brandy. Good idea. She knocked it back like water and felt it warm her jittery stomach. I guess you guys got all you needed. We got plenty. He wanted to touch his fingertips to her hair, but he was afraid she'd cringe away. You did good, Nancy. Yeah, I did. She lifted her eyes then, made herself meet his. I guess on some level we didn't make such a bad team. He stared down at her for a long time. It's been hard on you. I come from pretty tough stock, Skimmerhorn. Conroys don't fold easily. You were brilliant. Brent swept in to lift Dora out of the chair by her elbows. He kissed her hard. A stand-up job, Dora. You want a job on the force, you've got my recommendation. Thanks, but I'm putting my magnifying glass and coupe in mothballs. Come again? Nancy drew, Jed muttered, and felt his heart sag. I'm going down to interrogation with Brent. Are you going to be all right? I'm going to be fine. Terrific, in fact. Her smile was blinding, but she lowered herself carefully to the arm of the chair. It's still tough for me to believe that pathetic little man engineered all this and killed DiCarlo. Brent opened his mouth, then shut it again at a swift, warning look from Jed. We have enough on the tape to pry the rest out of him. Because they felt useless, Jed jammed his hands in his pockets. Are you sure you'll be all right? I said I would. Go be a cop. She softened the words with a smile. It looks good on you. She pushed a hand through her hair. Jed watched as the strands fell beautifully back into place. I'd appreciate it if you'd give me a call. Let me know what the result of the interrogation is. You'll get a full report, Brent promised her. In the morning. Steadier, she rose again. I'm going upstairs and sleep around the clock. If you're finished in here, I'll lock up behind you. She followed them to the door. When he reached it, Jed turned, closed his hand over hers on the knob. He couldn't help it. I'd like to talk to you tomorrow, when you're feeling up to it. She nearly gave in, very nearly. There was as much hurt in his eyes as she was holding inside her, but a fast break was a clean one. My schedule's a little tight, Jed. I booked an early morning flight to Aruba. I've got to pack. There was nothing in her voice, nothing in her face that offered the slightest opening. You move fast. It seemed best all around. I'll send you a postcard. Because she hated the bitter aftertaste of the statement, she turned her hand under his and gave it a quick squeeze. "Give 'em hell, Captain." She closed the door quickly and turned the lock. "Why didn't you tell her we've asked LAPD to move on Finley?" Brent demanded when Jed stood on the sidewalk. He hurt all over, as if someone had pounded him ruthlessly and methodically with foam-covered fists. "Do you think that would have made her sleep any better?" "No," Brent murmured to Jed's retreating back. "Guess not." And she was telling herself that sleep was exactly what she needed. She hadn't had a decent night of it in more than a week. Dora pulled the shade on the front door, then drummed up the energy to lift the coffee and tea tray. Once she got to Aruba, she promised herself, she'd do nothing but sleep. She'd sleep in bed, on the beach, in the ocean. She'd bake this aching depression out of her body and mind with the Caribbean sunshine, beat those midwinter blues, and come back tanned and revitalized. She set the tray on her desk to carefully lock the storeroom door and engage the security alarm before heading up to her apartment. It was habit more than desire that had her taking the tray into the kitchen to wash. When she turned from the sink, she was standing face to face with Finley. He smiled and took her nerveless hand in his. "I've taken you up on your offer of hospitality, Isadora, and may I say, you have a charming home." "I really don't think I should make any sort of statement without a lawyer." Winesap chewed on his ragged nails and glanced fitfully at Brent and Jed. "I really don't." "Suit yourself." Brent shrugged and straddled a chair. "We've got plenty of time. Do you want to call one, or do you want a PD?" "A public defender?" That pricked the pride enough to have his sagging shoulders lift. "Oh, no, I can afford counsel. I have a very good position." But his lawyer was in Los Angeles, he thought. "Perhaps if you could explain again why I'm here, we could dispense with the formality of an attorney." "You're here on suspicion of theft, smuggling, conspiracy to murder a police officer, and murder, among other things," Brent added. "That's really absurd." Pride deflated again. Winesap hunched down in his seat. "I don't know where you could have gotten such a ridiculous idea." "Maybe you'd like to listen to the tape of your conversation with Miss Conroy." Jed made the suggestion as he crossed to the recorder. "That was a simple transaction, and a private one." Winesap tried to lever some indignation through the fear in his voice, but when Jed switched on the recorder, he said nothing at all. It was painfully clear after only a few moments that he hadn't been thorough at all, and that he'd been remarkably stupid. While his mind worked, he began to suck on his knuckles. He didn't think he would care for prison. No, indeed. Winesap thought of Finley and knew he would like his employer's brand of punishment a good deal less. "Perhaps we can make an arrangement. Might I have a cup of water, please?" "Sure." Agreeably, Brent went to the water cooler and pumped out a paper cupful. "Thank you." Winesap sipped it slowly while he considered his options. "I think I would like immunity and a place in the witness protection program. I think that would suit me very well." "I think it would suit me very well to see you rot in a cell for the next 50 years, Jed said pleasantly. "Captain." Brent fell into the classic interrogation rhythm. "Let's give the guy a chance. Maybe he's got something to trade." "I promise you I do. If I have assurance that my cooperation will be rewarded, I'll give you everything you need to make a very big arrest." Loyalty, a chain around his neck for 8 long years, slipped easily off. "A very big one," he repeated. Jed gave an imperceptible nod as Brent's eyes met his. "I'll call the DA." "Why don't we sit down?" Findlay kept his hand firm on Dora's arm as he pulled her into the living room. "And have a nice chat." "How did you get in?" "There was such a lot of confusion this evening, wasn't there?" He smiled as he pushed her into a chair. "I wasn't at all sure that Abel, Mr. Winesap, could handle this matter efficiently on his own. I came to supervise. A very good thing, too." Finlay took the chair beside her and folded his hands comfortably. He saw Dora's eyes cut toward the door and shook his head. "Please don't attempt to run, Isadora. I'm very strong and very fit. I'd hate to resort to physical violence." She would hate it too, especially since she was certain she wouldn't get 2 feet. Her best bet was to play for time and wait for help. "It was you who sent DiCarlo." "It's a long, sad tale, but I find you such good company." He settled back comfortably and began to talk. He told her of the carefully planned robberies in several different countries, the network of men and finances it required to operate a successful business, legally and illegally. When he reached DiCarlo's part in it, he paused, sighed. "But I don't have to go into that with you, do I, dear? You're an excellent actress. One wonders why you decided to give it up. I realized quite soon after your visit to my office that you and DiCarlo had been in league together." For a moment she was too stunned to speak. "You think I was his partner?" "I'm sure you found him an adequate lover." Truly disappointed in her, Finley plucked at his cuffs. "And I can certainly see how you could have lured him into betraying me. A pity, too," Finley added softly. "He had potential." "What I told you in your office was exactly the truth. He broke in here and attacked me." "I'm quite sure you had some sort of falling out. Greed and sex working against one another, I would assume." His eyes narrowed, glinting dully. "Did you find another, more inventive man, Isadora, one you could maneuver and pit against poor Mr. DiCarlo so that he came to me with some feeble excuse for not returning my property?" "The painting was not your property. You stole it, and I was never involved with DiCarlo." "And when he didn't return," Finley continued as if she hadn't spoken, "you became concerned and decided to test the waters with me yourself. Oh, you were very clever, so charming, so distressed. I very nearly believed you. There was just one niggling doubt in my mind, which proved sadly true once I witnessed the events of this afternoon. I'm disappointed that you turned to the police, Isadora, settling for a finder's fee." He wagged a finger at her scoldingly. "I thought more of you than that. You've cost me 2 very good men and a painting I wanted very much. Now, how are we going to reconcile?" Too terrified to sit, she sprang to her feet. "They have your Mr. Winesap down at police headquarters. He'll be telling them all about you by now." "Do you think he would have the nerve?" Finley considered it a moment, then moved his shoulders in elegant dismissal. "Perhaps. But don't be concerned. Mr. Winesap will very soon suffer a tragic and fatal accident. I would much rather talk about my painting and how you think I can retrieve it." "You can't." "But surely, since you've been such a help, the police have told you where they've secured it." She said nothing, only because it surprised her so much that she hadn't thought to ask. "I thought so." Finley smiled broadly as he rose. "Just tell me where it is, Isadora, and leave the rest to me." "I don't know where." "Don't lie, please." He slipped his hand into the inside pocket of his saddle rose suit and pulled out a highly polished Luger. "Gorgeous, isn't it?" he asked when Dora's eyes fastened on the barrel. "A German make, used in World War II. I like to think that a Nazi officer killed quite efficiently with it. Now, Isadora, where is my painting?" She looked helplessly into his eyes. "I don't know." The force of the bullets slammed her back against the wall. Even as the fire erupted in her shoulder, she didn't believe he'd shot her, couldn't believe it. Dazed, she touched a finger to the worst of the heat and stared blindly at her blood-smeared fingers. She was still staring at them when she slid limply down the wall. "I really think you'd better tell me." All reason, Finley stepped up to where Dora lay in a boneless heap. "You're losing a great deal of blood." He crouched down, mindful not to stain his suit. "I don't want to cause you unnecessary distress. It took DiCarlo hours to die after I shot him. But there's no need for you to suffer like that." He sighed when she only whimpered. "We'll give you a little time to compose yourself, shall we?" Leaving her bleeding, he began to methodically examine her treasures, one by one.
The little bastard sure did sing.
Brent felt like singing himself as he cut through traffic toward South Street.
"I don't like cutting deals with weasels,"
Jed muttered.
"Even for a big fat weasel like Finley?"
"Even for that." He checked his watch.
"I'll feel better when I know that LAPD's picked him up. The warrant's in the works, pal. He won't be sleeping in his own bed tonight."
There was some comfort in that, some small comfort. Jed would have been happier if he could have taken the man down himself.
"You didn't have to come this far out of your way. I could have caught a cab." "Nothing's too good for the captain, not tonight. And if I were you, I wouldn't wait until morning to give a certain gorgeous brunette the good news.
She needs to sleep."
"She needs some peace of mind."
"She ought to get plenty of it in Aruba."
"Come again?"
"Nothing." Jed turned to scowl at the light sleet that began to fall as they turned onto South.
"Now then."
Finley sat down again, pleased when Dora found the strength to push herself to a sitting position against the wall. The blood seeping out of the wound on her shoulder had slowed to a sluggish ooze. About the painting. Her teeth were chattering. She'd never been so cold that even her bones felt like frigid sticks. While her arm and shoulder spurted fire, the rest of her seemed cased in ice. She tried to speak, but the words hitched one moment and slurred drunkenly the next. The police took it."
"I know that."
The first sizzle of anger crept into his words.
"I'm not a fool, Isadora, as you obviously believe. The police have the painting, and I intend to get it back. I paid for it."
"They took it away." Her head lolled on her shoulder, then rolled weakly against the wall. The room was losing its color, going gray. "To grandmother's house," she said, edging toward delirium. "Then away. I don't know."
"I can see you need incentive."
He set the gun aside and loosened his tie. Dully, Dora watched him slip out of his jacket. When he reached for the gold buckle of his belt, slippery fingers of horror crept through the shock. "Don't touch me." She tried to crawl away, but the room revolved sickeningly so that she could only curl in a ball in a congealing puddle of her own blood. "Please, don't."
No. Unlike DeCarlo, I have no plans to force myself on you, but a good whipping with this belt may loosen your tongue. It may be hard for you to believe, but I actually enjoy inflicting pain."
He wrapped the end of the belt around his hand, the buckle loose to add bite to the beating.
"Now, Isadora, where is the painting?"
She saw him pick up the gun and raise the belt at the same time. All she could do to try to block both weapons was close her eyes.
"You can drop me out front,"
Jed told Brent.
"Nope, door-to-door service."
He whipped into the parking lot, spitting gravel.
"If you had any heart, you'd ask me up for a beer."
"I haven't got any heart." Jed pushed the door open and glanced back at Brent's engaging grin.
"Sure, come ahead."
If nothing else, it would put off the time he'd have to spend alone, waiting for morning.
"You got any of that imported stuff?"
Brent slung a friendly arm over Jed's shoulders as they trooped toward the steps.
"Mexican, maybe? I really feel like—"
When they heard the thin cry, they each slapped a weapon into their hands. They charged through the door in a dead run. Years of partnership clicked seamlessly into place. When Jed kicked open Dora's door, he went in high, Brent low. The faintest flicker of irritation crossed Finley's face as he whirled. 2 police issues fired simultaneously. 2 9mm bullets caught Finley high in the chest.
"God! Oh, God!"
With terror singing in his head, Jed rushed to Dora. He said her name over and over like a prayer as he ripped off her blouse and used it to staunch the oozing blood.
"Hang on, baby. You hang on."
There was so much blood, he thought frantically, too much, and because it had begun to clot, he knew too much time had passed. When he looked at her still, white face, he had one moment of unspeakable horror when he thought she was dead. But she was shaking. He could feel the racking trembles of shock even as he peeled off his jacket to cover her. "You're going to be okay. Dora, baby, can you hear me?" Her eyes were wide and dilated and remained unfocused. The second bullet had gone through the fleshy part of her upper arm. She hadn't even felt it. "Use this." Brent pushed a towel into Jed's shaking hands and folded another to place under Dora's head. "Ambulance is on the way." He spared a glance at the body sprawled on the rug. "He's dead." "Dora, listen to me. You listen to me, damn it!" Jed worked quickly as he spoke to her, using the towel to pad the upper wound and what was left of her blouse to fashion a pressure bandage. "I want you to hold on. Just hold on." Then he could think of nothing else but to gather her close and rock her. "Please stay with me. I need you to stay with me." He felt the light brush of her hand on his cheek. When he looked down at her face, her lips trembled open. Don't tell my parents," she whispered. "I don't want them to worry." 30. He would have wept if it would have helped. He'd tried everything else, swearing, pacing, praying. Now he could only sit, his head in his hands, and wait. The Conroys were there. Jed wondered if Dora would be surprised at how tough they were. He doubted it. There had been tears and there had been terror, but they had all drawn together, a solid wall, in the hospital waiting room to count the minutes while Dora was in surgery. He'd waited for recriminations. They had given him none. He'd wanted blame, but it hadn't come from them, not even when he had stood smeared with Dora's blood and told them that he'd left her alone, left her defenseless, had they blamed him. He wished to Christ they had. Instead, John had gotten them all coffee, Leah had gone down to wait for Will to arrive from New York, and Quentin and Trixie had sat side by side on the sofa holding hands. After the second hour had crawled by, Trixie murmured to her husband. When she received his nod of agreement, she rose and went to sit beside Jed. "She was always a tough little girl," Trixie began. "She used to pick fights in school. Well, not pick them precisely, but she would never walk away from one with dignity. It used to amaze me that she would scream like a banshee if she fell and banged her knee. But if she came home with a split lip or a swollen eye, you never heard a peep. A matter of pride, I suppose." "This wasn't her fight." Jed kept the heels of his hands pressed hard against his eyes. "It shouldn't have been." "That's for her to decide. She'll want lots of pampering, you know. She was never sick often, but when she was—" Trixie's voice broke, betraying her. She mopped quickly at her eyes and steadied it. "When she was, she expected everyone's devoted attention. Dora's never been one to suffer in silence." Gently she touched the back of his hand. When he lowered it enough, she gripped it firmly. "It's so much harder to wait alone." "Mrs. Conroy." But he didn't have the words. He simply leaned against her and let himself be held. They all rose to their feet at the quick slap of crepe-soled shoes on tile. Still in her scrubs, Mary Pat stepped through the doorway. "She's out of surgery," she said quickly. "It looks good. The doctor will be out soon." It was then Trixie began to cry, with hard, racking sobs and hot tears that burned through Jed's shirt. His arms went around her automatically as he met Mary Pat's eyes. "When can they see her?" "The doctor will let you know. She's a tough one, I can tell you that." "Didn't I say so?" Trixie managed. She stumbled blindly into Quentin's arms so they could weep out their relief together. It wasn't until he was alone again that Jed started to shake. He'd gone outside, had fully intended on going home. It was a time for family, he'd told himself. Now that he knew she was going to pull through it, there was no need to hang around. But he couldn't make it across the street to hail a cab, so he sat down on the steps and waited for the tremors to subside. The The sleet had turned to snow that fell quick and light and damp. There was something otherworldly about the way it danced in the streetlights, something hypnotic. He stared at one beam of light as he smoked one cigarette, then another. Then he walked back in and rode the elevator to the floor where Dora lay sleeping. "Figured you'd be back." Mary Pat smiled at him out of eyes red-rimmed with fatigue. "Damn it, Jed, you're soaked. Am I going to have to dig up a bed for you?" "I just want to see her. I know she's sedated. I know she won't know I'm there. I just want to see her." "Let me get you a towel." "MP." "You're going to dry off first," she told him. "Then I'll take you in." She was as good as her word. When she was satisfied he was dry enough, she led him into Dora's room. Dora lay still and white as death. Jed's heart careened into his throat. "Are you sure she's going to be all right?" "She's stabilized, and there were no complications. Dr. Forsythe's good, believe me." She didn't want to think about the amount of blood they'd had to pump into Dora, or how long it had taken to get that feeble pulse to steady. "The bullet's out, and there's some tissue damage, but it'll heal. She's going to be weak as a baby for a while, and she's going to hurt." "I don't want her to hurt." His control slipped a dangerous notch. "You make sure she gets whatever she needs so she isn't in pain." "Why don't you just sit with her for a while?" Mary Pat ran a soothing hand up and down his back. "It'll make you feel better." "Thanks." "I go off duty in an hour. I'll check back." But when she did, one look had her stepping back and leaving them alone. He was still there in the morning. She awakened slowly, as if swimming toward the surface of still, dark water. The air seemed too thick to breathe, and there was a whooshing sound in her head, like waves lapping gently on the shore. He watched her break through, every flicker of the eyelid. Her hand flexed once in his, then lay still again. "Come on, Dora. Don't go back yet." He brushed his fingers over her hair, over her cheek. She was still too pale, he thought, much too pale. But her lashes fluttered again, then her eyes opened. He waited for them to focus. "Jed?" Her voice sounded hollow, lifeless, and the sound of it almost broke him. "Yeah, baby, right here." "I had a nightmare." He pressed a kiss to her hand, fighting the need to simply lay his head on the bed and let go. "It's all right now." "It seemed awfully real. Oh, God." She shifted, sending an arrow of pain radiating through her arm. "You've got to lie still." Like the pain, memory burst back. "He shot me. Jesus." She started to move her hand to the fire blooming in her shoulder, but he clamped his fingers on hers. "It was Finley." "It's all over now. You're going to be fine." "I'm in the hospital." The panic came quickly, surging along with the pain. How bad?" "They fixed you all up. You just need to rest now." None of his 14 years on the force had prepared him to deal with the terrified pain clouding her eyes. "I'm going to get a nurse." "I remember." Her fingers trembled as she groped to hang on to his. "He was in the apartment, waiting for me. He wanted the painting back. I told him I didn't know where it was. And he shot me." "He won't ever hurt you again. I swear it." He pressed his brow against their joined hands and felt himself crack. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." But she was swimming down through the dark water again, away from the pain. "Don't leave me alone here." "I won't." The next time he saw her conscious, she was surrounded by flowers, banks and bouquets of them, from sweet little nosegays to towering exotic blooms. Rather than the drab hospital gown, she was wearing something frilly and pink. Her hair was washed, and she was wearing makeup. But to Jed, she looked horribly frail. "How are you doing, Conroy?" "Hi." She smiled and held out a hand. "How do you break in? They're vicious about proper visiting hours around here." "I pulled rank." He hesitated. The hand in his felt as fragile as bird wings. If you're too tired, I can stop back by later.
No. If you stay, you can chase them away when they come in with their needles.
Sure. My pleasure. Miserably awkward, he turned away to study the forest of flowers. Looks like you ought to go into a different business.
Great, isn't it? I love being fawned over.
She shifted, winced, and was grateful his back was to her.
You ratted on me, Skimmerhorn.
What?
You told my family.
I figured it was better than having them read it in the papers.
You're probably right. So, what's happening in your world? Mary Pat tells me you kicked Goldman out early and went back to work.
Yeah. He'd had to have something filling his days or go quietly mad.
Can I see your badge?
What?
Really? She smiled again. Can I see it?
Sure.
He pulled out his shield as he crossed to the bed. She took it, studied it, opened and closed it a couple of times. Pretty cool. How does it feel?
Right, he told her as he slipped it back into his pocket.
There was no possible way he could stand there and make small talk when he kept seeing the stark white bandage peeking out beneath that frilly pink nightgown.
Listen, I just stopped by to see how you were doing. I've got to go.
Before you give me my present? When he said nothing, she drummed up another smile, though it was becoming harder as her medication wore off. That box you're holding, isn't it for me?
Yeah, it's for you.
He set it on her lap.
I've been by a couple of times when you were zonked out. After I saw the flower shop in here, I figured you wouldn't need any more posies.
You can never have too many. She reached for the fussy bow, then sat back again. Give me a hand, will you? I have a little trouble using my arm.
He didn't move, but his eyes were eloquent. They told me there wouldn't be any permanent damage.
Right. Her mouth moved into a pout. Like a scar isn't permanent damage. I'm never going to look the same in a bikini. He couldn't handle it, simply couldn't. Turning abruptly, he strode to the window and stared blindly out with a heavy scent of roses tormenting him.
I should have been there, he managed after a moment. You shouldn't have been alone.
His voice was so angry, his shoulders so stiff, that Dora waited for the storm. When it didn't come, she plucked at the bow with her good hand. From what Brent tells me, Finley slipped right through LAPD. Nobody had a clue he'd left California. I don't see how anyone could have imagined he'd waltz right into my apartment and shoot me.
It's my job to know.
So it's going to your head already. What do they call that super cop thing? The John Wayne syndrome, right? She'd managed to pull and tug the ribbon off, and was lifting the top off the box when he turned. "Well, Pilgrim," she said in a very poor Wayne imitation, "you just can't be everywhere at once." Though her arm was beginning to throb, she dug happily into the tissue paper. "I love presents, and I'm not ashamed to say so. I don't particularly care to get shot to— Oh, Jed, it's beautiful." Stunned, really completely stunned, she lifted out the old wooden and gesso box, delicately painted and gilded with figures from mythology. When she opened the lid, it played Greensleeves softly.
It was hanging around in storage.
He dipped his hands into his pockets and felt like a fool.
I figured you'd get a kick out of it.
"It's beautiful," she said again. And the look she sent him was so sincerely baffled, he felt even more foolish. "Thank you."
"It's no big deal. I figured you could put junk in it while you're stuck in here. I've really got to take off. You, need anything?"
She continued to run her fingers over the box as she looked at him. "I could use a favor."
"Name it."
"Can you pull some strings, get me out of here?" It shamed her to feel tears pricking at her eyes. "I want to go home." It took him several hours and a great deal of negotiation, but Dora finally laid her head down on her own pillow in her own bed. "Thank you, God." Dora closed her eyes, sighed deeply, then opened them again to smile at Mary Pat. "Nothing against your workplace, MP, but personally I hated it. You weren't exactly the ideal patient either, kiddo. Open up." She stuck a thermometer in Dora's mouth. "I was a jewel," Dora muttered. A diamond in the rough, maybe. Very rough. But I'm not going to complain. A few days of private duty suits me just fine."
Efficiently, she wrapped a blood pressure cuff around Dora's uninjured arm.
"Right on the money," she announced when she took the thermometer out to read. But Dora caught the quick frown over blood pressure. "What's wrong?" "Nothing that quiet and rest won't fix." "I've been quiet. I never thought I'd hear myself say this, but I'm tired of being in bed." "Live with it." Sitting on the edge of the bed, Mary Pat took her hand and her pulse. "I'm going to be straight with you, Dora. You're going to be just fine with the proper rest and care. But this wasn't any skinned knee. If Jed hadn't gotten you in when he did, you wouldn't be here to complain. As it was close." "I know. I remember it all a bit too clearly for comfort." "You're entitled to moan and bitch. I won't mind a bit. But you're also going to follow orders to the letter, or I'll report you to the captain."
Dora smiled a little. "You nurses have ranks?"
"I'm talking about Jed, dimwit. He's financing this operation." "What do you mean?" "I mean, you've got round-the-clock home care for as long as you need it, courtesy of Captain J.T. Skimmerhorn." "But I thought insurance was arranging it." "Get real." Chuckling at the thought, Mary Pat plumped the pillows, smoothed the sheets. "Now, get some rest. I'm going to go fix you something to eat." "He shouldn't feel guilty," Dora murmured when Mary Pat started out of the room. Mary Pat stopped, looked back. "He feels a lot more than guilt where you're concerned. Did you know he didn't leave the hospital for the first 48 hours? "No." Dora looked down at her hands. "I didn't." "Or that he checked on you every night?"
Dora only shook her head.
"A lot of women wait their whole lives for someone to feel that guilty." Alone, Dora reached for the music box. She opened the lid, closed her eyes, and wondered what to do. At the end of her shift, Mary Pat passed her patient's progress on to her replacement, but she didn't consider herself off duty yet. Marching across the hall, she rapped sharply on Jed's door. When Jed opened it, she jabbed a finger into his chest. "Couldn't you find the energy to walk across the goddamn hall and—" She broke off, scowling. "What are you doing?"
"I'm packing." Darts of righteous fury shot out of her eyes.
"The hell you are!"
Incensed, she stomped over and upended a box of books onto the floor.
"You're not walking out on her when she's flat on her back and defenseless."
"I'm not walking out."
He struggled for calm. He'd convinced himself, very logically, that what he was doing for Dora.
"She asked me to leave. It's only going to upset her if she finds out I haven't moved yet."
Mary Pat fisted her hands on her hips. "You're an idiot. I can almost accept that, but I never thought you were a coward."
"Back off, MP."
"Not a chance. Can you stand there and tell me you're not in love with her?"
He reached for a cigarette.
Mary Pat snatched it out of his hand and broke it in two. He glared. She glared right back.
"No, I can't. But that's not the point. The doctor was real clear about keeping her free from stress. She doesn't need me hanging around upsetting her."
"Sit down. Sit down, damn it!" She gave him a quick shove. "I'm going to tell you exactly what she needs."
"Fine."
He slumped into a chair.
"I'm sitting."
"Have you ever told her you loved her?"
"I don't see that that's any of your business."
"I didn't think so." Impatient, she took a quick turn around the room, barely preventing herself from kicking his weight bench. "Have you ever picked her wildflowers?"
"It's fucking February."
"You know exactly what I'm talking about." She turned on him, slapped both hands on the arm of his chair to cage him in. "I'll lay odds you never lit candles for her, or took her for a walk by the river, or brought her some silly present."
"I gave her a damn music box."
"Not enough. She needs to be wooed." Incredibly, he felt a flush creeping up on his neck.
"Give me a break."
"I'd like to break your butt, but I'm sworn to heel." "You almost lost her." His eyes whipped up sharp as a sword.
"Don't you think I know that? I wake up in a sweat every night remembering how close it was."
"Then do something positive. Show her what she means to you."
I don't want to push myself on her when she's vulnerable." Mary Pat rolled her eyes. "Then you are stupid." Feeling sorry for him, she kissed him. "Find some wildflowers, Jed. My money's on you." The box arrived the following afternoon. "More presents," Leah announced, struggling to shove the huge box across the living room to where Dora sat on the couch. "I'm thinking of getting shot myself as long as it's a flesh wound. Believe me, it's not worth it. Get the scissors, will you? Let's get the baby open." She leaned down to study. "No return address. Ah, a secret admirer." Tongue caught in her teeth. Leah attacked the packing tape. "Oh," she said, deflating when she opened the lid. "It's just books." "God, oh my God, Carolyn Keene." She was down on her knees, rummaging. "Nancy Drew, it looks like the complete set. And first editions. Look, it's the Clue of the Leaning Chimney, the Hidden Staircase." All at once, she clutched the books to her breasts and began to weep. Oh, honey, did you hurt yourself? Let me help you to bed." "No." She pressed Passport to Larkspur Lane against her cheek. "They're from Jed." "I see," Leah said carefully, and sat back on her heels. "He went to all this trouble just to be sweet. Why is he being so sweet? Look, a few days ago he sent me this bracelet." She held out her arm and continued babbling even when Leah oohed and awed over it. "And that silly cow, and the watercolor. Why is he doing this? What's wrong with him?" "Love sickness would be my guess." Dora sniffled and rubbed tears away with the sleeve of her robe. "That's ridiculous." "Honey, don't you know when you're being romanced?" Leah picked up a book, turned it over, shook her head. "I myself might prefer a slightly different style, but this certainly seems to have punched your buttons. He's just feeling sorry for me, and guilty." She hitched back tears, blinked them away. "Isn't he? Honey, the man I saw haunting that hospital wasn't there out of guilt." She reached over to tuck her sister's hair behind her ear. "Are you going to give him a break?" She laid a book on her lap, running her hands gently over the cover. "Before I was shot, I broke things off with him. I told him to move out. He hurt me, Leah. I don't want him to hurt me again. I can't tell you what to do, but it seems awfully unfair to make him keep suffering." She kissed Dora's forehead, then rose to answer the knock on the door. "Hi, Jed." Leah smiled and kissed him as well. "Your surprise hit the mark. She's in there right now, crying over the books." He stepped back automatically, but Leah took his hand and pulled him inside. "Look who's here." "Hi." Dora brushed at tears and managed a shaky smile. "These are great." Her eyes overflowed again. "Really great." "Their value's going to plummet if they're water damaged," he warned her. "You're right, but I always get sentimental over first editions." "I was just on my way out." Leah grabbed her coat, but neither of them paid any attention to her departure. "I don't know what to say." She continued to press the hidden staircase like a beloved child to her breast. "Say thanks," he suggested. "Thanks. But Jed—" "Listen, I've got the go-ahead to spring you for a while. You up for a drive?" "Are you kidding?" She scrambled to her feet. "Outside? All the way outside and not to the hospital?" "Get your coat, Conroy." "I can't believe it," she said a few minutes later as she slid luxuriously down in the seat of Jed's car. "No nurses, no looming thermometers or blood pressure cuffs." "How's the shoulder doing?" "It's sore." She opened the window just to feel the rush of air on her face and missed the way his fingers tightened on the wheel. "They make me do this physical therapy, which is, to put it mildly, unpleasant, but it's effective." She jockeyed her elbow to a right angle to prove it. "Not bad, huh?" "That's great." There was such restrained violence in the statement she lifted a brow. "Everything all right at work?" "It's fine. You were right all along. I shouldn't have left." "You just needed some time." She touched his arm, letting her hand fall away when he jerked. It was time, she thought, to clear the air. "Jed,
I know that we were in a difficult position before I was hurt. I know I was unkind."
Don't.
He didn't think he could bear it.
You were right. Everything you said was right. I didn't want you to get too close, and I made certain you couldn't. You were one of the main reasons I went back on the job, but I didn't share it with you, because I would have had to admit that it mattered. That what you thought of me mattered. It was deliberate.
She rolled up the window again, shutting out the wind. "There's no point in raking it up again."
I guess it would sound pretty convenient if I told you I was going to ask you to forgive me, that I'd have been willing to beg for another chance before you got hurt."
He shot her a look, caught her wide-eyed stare, then scowled back through the windshield in disgust.
"Yeah, that's what I thought you'd say."
"I'm not sure," she said cautiously, "what another chance might entail." He was going to try to show her. He pulled up in the driveway, set the brake, then rounded the hood to help her out. Because she was staring at his house, she moved wrong and bumped her arm against the car door. "Damn!" Her gasp of helpless pain broke him.
"I can't stand to see you hurt."
Shielding her arm, he gathered her close.
"I just can't stand it. It rips at me, Dora, every time I think of it. Every time I remember what it was like to see you on the floor, to have your blood on my hands."
He began to tremble, all those honed muscles quivering like plucked strings.
"I thought you were dead. I looked at you, and I thought you were dead."
"Don't," she soothed automatically. "I'm all right now."
"I didn't prevent it," he said fiercely. "I was too late."
"But you weren't. You saved my life. He'd have killed me. He wanted to, as much as he wanted the painting. You stopped him."
"It isn't enough."
Fighting for control, he gentled his grip on her and stepped back. "It suits me pretty well." "Jed." She lifted a hand to his cheek. He grasped at it, pressed it hard to his lips.
"Just give me a minute."
He stood there a moment, with the air cool and crisp, whispering through denuded trees and sleeping winter grass.
"You shouldn't be standing out in the cold."
"It feels great."
"I want you to come inside. I want to finish this inside."
"All right."
Though she no longer felt weak, she let him support her as they went up the walk. She thought he needed to. But it was he who was unsteady as he unlocked the door, opened it, led her inside. His nerves jumped as she let out a quiet gasp of pleasure. She stepped onto the welcoming Bokhara rug.
"You've put things back."
"Some."
He watched the way she ran her fingertips over the rosewood table, the curved back of a chair, the way she smiled at the fussy gilded mirror.
"My landlord kicked me out, so I took a few things out of storage."
"The right things." She walked on into the front parlor. He'd put back a curvy pin-striped settee, a lovely Tiffany lamp on a satinwood table. There was a fire burning low in the hearth. She felt both a surge of pleasure and grief. "You're moving back in?"
"That depends."
He slipped her coat carefully off her shoulders, laid it on the arm of the settee.
"I came back here last week. It wasn't the same. I could see you walking up the stairs, sitting on my window seat, looking out the kitchen window. You changed the house," he said, as she turned slowly to face him. "You changed me. I want to move back in and make it work, if you'll come with me."
Dora didn't think the sudden dizziness had anything to do with her healing injuries. "I think I want to sit down." She lowered herself to the striped cushions and took 2 careful breaths. "You're going to move back here? You want to move back here?"
"Yeah, that's right."
"And you want me to live with you?"
"If that's the best I can get."
He took a small box out of his pocket and pushed it into her hands.
"I'd like it better if you'd marry me."
"Can I—" Her voice came out in a squeak. "Can I have some water?" Frustrated, he dragged a hand through his hair.
"Damn it, Conroy." "Sure."
He bit back on temper and a terrible fit of nerves.
"Sure, I'll get it."
She waited until he was out of the room before she worked up the courage to open the box. She was glad she had, because her mouth fell open. She was still staring dumbfounded at the ring when he came back in, carrying a baccarat tumbler filled with lukewarm tap water. "Thanks." She took the glass, drank deeply. "It's a whopper." Disgusted with himself, he fumbled out a cigarette. "I guess it's overstated." "Oh, no. There isn't a diamond in the world that's overstated." She laid the box in her lap, but kept a hand possessively around it. "Jed, I think these past few weeks have been as hard on you as they have on me. I might not have appreciated that, but—" "I love you, Dora." That stopped her cold. Before she could gather her wits, he was beside her on the settee, crunching several bones in her hand. "God damn it, don't ask me for another glass of water. If you don't want to answer yet, I'll wait. I just want a chance to make you love me again." "Is that what all this has been about? The presents and the phone calls? You were trying to undermine my defenses when I was down." He looked down at their joined hands. "That about sizes it up." She nodded, then rose to walk to the window. She'd want tulips out there in the spring, she thought, and lots of sunny daffodils. "Good job," she said quietly. "Damn good job, Skimmerhorn. It was the books that really did it, though. How could I possibly hold out against a complete set of first edition Nancy Drew?" She looked down at the bold, square-cut diamond still in her hand. "You exploited my weaknesses for nostalgia, romance, and material gain." "I'm not such a bad deal." Nerves screaming, he came up behind her to touch a hand to her hair. "I've got some flaws, sure, but I'm loaded." Her lips curved. "That approach might have worked once, but I'm pretty well set myself since I'll be awarded a fat finder's fee on the Monet. I might be greedy, Skimmerhorn, but I have my standards." "I'm crazy about you." "That's better." "You're the only woman I've ever wanted to spend my life with." He brushed a light kiss at the curve of her shoulder and throat and made her sigh. "The only woman I've ever loved, or want to love." "That's excellent." "I don't think I can live without you, Dora." Tears burned her throat, thickening her voice. "Direct hit." "So, does that mean you're going to fall in love with me again?" "What makes you think I ever stopped?" The hand he had in her hair fisted and made her wince. "And the marriage thing? You'll give it a shot?" She grinned into the sunlight. It might not have been the world's most romantic proposal, but it suited her. It suited her just fine. "We'll need lace at the curtains, Jed, and I have a Chippendale bench that's waiting to sit in front of that fire." He turned her around, brushing her hair back so that his hands could frame her face. He only had to see her eyes for the nerves to vanish. "Kids?" 3. "Good number." Overwhelmed, he rested his brow against hers. "There's a bed upstairs in the master suite. I think it's a George III. 4-poster? Tester. Stay here with me tonight." She laughed her way into the kiss. "I thought you'd never ask."
We hope you have enjoyed our presentation of Hidden Riches by Nora Roberts. Copyright 1994 by Nora Roberts. Read by Sandra Burr. Performance copyright 1994 by Brilliance Audio. All rights reserved. For further information concerning this program or other Brilliance Audio titles, please call the following toll-free number: 1-800-222-3225, or visit our website at www.brillianceaudio.com. No part of this recording may be played for an audience or reproduced in any form. It may not be streamed, downloaded, broadcast, or copied without written permission. Address all inquiries to Brilliance Audio, Post Office Box 887, Grand Haven, Michigan 49417.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.
tone, she smiled. Definitely the red. For all you know, he won't even see you. Of course he'll see me. She stopped, frowned. How are we going to make him want to see me? Because you're going to call him, and you're going to say exactly what I tell you to say. I see. She tilted her head, lifted a brow. Have you written me a script, Skimmerhorn? I'm a quick study. I can be off book in no time. Just do what you're told. In Los Angeles, Winesap entered Finley's office with a worried frown creasing his face.
Mr. Finley, sir. Miss Conroy, she's on line 2. She's waiting to speak with you.
Is that so? Finley closed the file he'd been studying, folded his hands on top of it. An interesting development. Winesap's hands twisted together like nervous cats.
Mr. Finley, when I spoke with her earlier today, she was quite cooperative, and I certainly never mentioned my connection with you. I don't know what this might mean.
Then we'll find out, won't we? Sit, Abel. He lifted the receiver and, smiling, leaned back in his chair. Miss Conroy, Edmund Finley here. He listened, his smile growing wider and more feral. I'm afraid I don't follow you, Miss Conroy. You're inquiring about one of my employees, Anthony DiCarlo? I see. He picked up a letter opener from his desk and tested the honed point with the pad of his thumb. Of course, I understand if you feel a personal meeting is important. I don't know if I'll be able to help. We've told the police all we know about Mr. DiCarlo's unexplained disappearance, which is, unfortunately, nothing. Very well, he added after a moment. If you feel you can't discuss it over the telephone, I'd be happy to see you. Tomorrow? His brows raised. Gently, he scraped the point of the letter opener over the Conroy file. That is rather short notice. Life and death? He barely suppressed a chuckle. I'll see if it can be arranged. Will you hold? I'll give you to my assistant. He'll check my calendar. I'll look forward to meeting you. With a flourish of wrist, Finley punched the hold button. Give her 4 o'clock.
You have a meeting at 3:30, sir.
Give her 4 o'clock, Finley repeated, and held out the phone.
Yes, sir.
Winesap took the receiver in his damp hand, engaged the line.
Miss Conroy, this is Abel Winesap, Mr. Finley's assistant. You'd like an appointment for tomorrow? I'm afraid the only time Mr. Finley has open is at 4. Yes. You have the address? Excellent. We'll be expecting you.
Delightful. Finley nodded approval when Winesap replaced the receiver. Simply delightful. Fools walk in, Abel. He opened Dora's file again and smiled genially at her dossier. I'm certainly looking forward to this. Clear my calendar for tomorrow afternoon. I want no distractions when I see Miss Isadora Conroy. She will have all my attention. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Dora said, and turned to Jed. He sounded puzzled but cooperative, pleasant but reserved. And you sounded on the verge of hysteria but controlled. Impressed despite himself, he tipped her face up with his finger and kissed her. Not bad, Conroy. Not bad at all. There's something else. Though she wanted to, she didn't take his hand. If she had, he'd have seen that hers was chilled. I think I just spoke with Mr. Petroy. Finley? No. She forced a thin smile. His assistant, Winesap. 25. Dora was pleased and impressed when the cab pulled up in front of the pink stucco villa that was the Beverly Hills Hotel. Well, well, Skimmerhorn, you surprise me. This makes up for not springing for a night at the Plaza in New York. The room's booked in your name. Jed watched Dora gracefully offer her hand to the doorman. The gesture was one of a woman who'd been sliding out of limos all her life. You have to put it on your credit card. She cast a withering look at him over her shoulder. Thanks a bunch, big spender. You want to advertise the fact that you're traveling out here with a companion? He asked when she sailed through the doors and into the lobby. A cop? You left out the X. So I did, he murmured, and waited while Dora checked in. The Tony lobby of the BHH didn't seem exactly the right setting to tell her that the X wouldn't apply much longer. Dora covertly scanned the lobby for passing movie stars when she handed the desk clerk her card for imprint. "I'm going to bill you for this, Skimmerhorn." "It was your idea to come." "True enough." "Then I'll only bill you for half." She accepted her card and 2 keys, passed one to the waiting bellman. "Some of us are not independently wealthy." "Some of us," he said as he slipped an arm around her waist, "paid for the airfare." She was touched by the easy way he'd linked them together as they trailed the luggage to the elevator and up to the room. Dora quickly slipped out of her shoes and padded over to the window to check out the view. There was nothing quite so Californian, she mused, as lush lawns, regal palms, and cozy stucco cottages. "I haven't been in L.A. since I was 15. We stayed in an incredibly bad hotel in Burbank, while my father did a part in a small, forgettable film with John Voight. It did not distinguish either of their careers." She stretched her back, rolled her shoulders. "I guess I'm a snob, an East Coast snob, because L.A. doesn't do it for me. It makes me think of unnecessary eye tucks and designer yogurt. Or maybe it's designer eye tucks and unnecessary yogurt. After all, who really needs yogurt in their lives?" She turned back, her smile becoming puzzled when he only continued to stare at her. "What is it?" "I just like looking at you sometimes, that's all." "Oh." When he saw that the statement had both pleased and flustered her, he smiled back. "You're okay, Conroy, even with the pointy chin." "It's not pointy." She rubbed it defensively. "It's delicately sculpted. You know, maybe we should have booked a suite. This room's hardly bigger than a closet. Or maybe we can just go out for a while, get something to eat, and soak up some smog." "You're nervous." "Of course I'm not nervous." She tossed her bag onto the bed and undid the straps. "You're nervous," Jed repeated. "You talk too much when you're nervous. Actually, you talk too much all the time, but there's a different quality to the babble when you're nervous, and you can't keep your hands still." He laid his gently over hers. "Obviously, I've already become too predictable, the first death knell in any relationship." He simply turned her around, keeping her hands in his. "You've got a right to be nervous. I'd be more worried about you if you weren't." "I don't want you to worry." Because she didn't, she willed her hands to relax in his. "I'm going to be fine. Classic opening night jitters, that's all it is." "You don't have to do this. I can keep the appointment for you." "I never give the understudy a chance to steal my thunder." She inhaled and exhaled twice, deeply. "I'm okay. Wait till you read the reviews." Since she so obviously needed him to, he played along. "What did you used to do before opening night?" Thinking back, she sat on the edge of the bed. "Well, you'd pace a lot. Pacing's good. And you'd keep running lines in your head and going over the blocking. I'd get out of my street clothes and into a robe, sort of like a snake shedding, and vocalize. I used to do a lot of tongue twisters." "Such as?" "Moses supposes his toes are roses," that kind of thing. Grinning, she waggled her tongue between her teeth. "You've got to limber the tongue." "Yours has always seemed pretty limber to me." "Thanks." She laughed and looked back at him. "Good job, Skimmerhorn. I feel better." "Good." He gave her hair a brotherly tussle, then turned to the phone. "I'll order up some room service, then we'll go over the routine again." Dora groaned and flopped back on the bed. "I hate heavy-handed directors." But he didn't let up. 2 hours later they had eaten, argued, discussed every possible contingency, and he was still unsatisfied. He listened to her reciting tongue twisters in the bathroom and frowned at the door. He'd have felt better if she'd been wearing a wire. Foolish, he supposed, as she'd be walking into a fully staffed office building in broad daylight, but it would have eased his mind. If he hadn't been concerned that Finley's security might have picked up on it, he'd have insisted. It was a simple job, he reminded himself, one with little to no risk, and he'd already taken the precaution of seeing that the minimal degree of risk was all but eliminated. It was the all but that nagged at him. The door opened, and Dora stepped out wearing the red suit that showed off every glorious curve in that sexy body, highlighting her legs in a way that would make any man this side of the grave salivate. "What do you think?" She was holding 2 different pairs of earrings up to each lobe. "The drops or the knots?"
How the hell should I know?
"The knots," she decided. "More discreet." She fastened them on. "I'd forgotten how much better you feel once you're in costume. There's just those little ripples of nerves that keep the adrenaline up." She reached for her bottle of perfume. He frowned as she spritzed on scent, the throat, the back of the neck, the wrists, the backs of her knees. Something about the female ritual made his stomach jitter. When she picked up her antique silver brush and pulled it slowly through her hair, he knew what that something was. It made him feel like a voyeur.
You look fine.
He had to clear his throat.
You can stop primping now.
Brushing your hair isn't primping, it's basic grooming. While she gave it another sweep, she caught his gaze in the mirror. "I'd swear you're more nervous than I am."
Just stick to the plan and try to remember everything you see. Don't bring up the painting. You haven't got a clue about the painting. Try to go through Winesap. We're running him down, but I want your impressions, not your speculations, your impressions.
"I know." Patiently, she set the brush aside. "Jed, I know exactly what to do and how to do it. It's simple. Simpler because I might have done just this if I hadn't known about the painting. It's a very logical step."
Just watch your ass.
"Darling, I'm counting on you to do that for me."
Dora was impressed with the decor of Finley's outer office, trying to pick up helpful clues. As she'd suspected, he was a collector, and their mutual interest would give them a firm foundation. Her hands were chilled. That was good, too. The honest nerves she projected were just what she needed to set the tone for her visit. It was difficult to hang on to those nerves and character when she really wanted to walk over and examine some of Finley's treasures firsthand. She felt favorably toward anyone who put malachite vases and chipperous figures in his waiting area. And the settee she was using was no reproduction. Early Chippendale, Dora thought reverently, high-style rococo. She sincerely hoped Finley would prove himself to be in the clear. She'd love to develop a business relationship, but if he wasn't... The thought of that had the nerves creeping back. She fiddled with the calla lily pin at her lapel, brushed at her skirt, looked at her watch. Damn, it was 4:10, she thought. How long was he going to keep her waiting? "Excellent, excellent," Finley murmured to Dora's video image. She was every bit as lovely as he'd expected from the faded newspaper photos Winesap had unearthed from old show and style sections. Her wardrobe showed a flair for color and line, as well as an affection for the feminine. He respected a woman who knew how to present herself to her best advantage. He enjoyed the way her hands moved restlessly through her hair, over her body. Nerves, he thought, pleased. A spider gained more thrill from a panicky fly than a resigned one. And despite the nerves, he noted, her eyes were drawn again and again to pieces in his collection. That flattered him. They would do very well together, he decided, very well indeed. He buzzed his receptionist. It was time to begin. "Mr. Finley will see you now." "Thank you." Dora rose, tucked her envelope bag under her arm, and followed the woman to the double doors. When she entered, Finley smiled and stood. "Miss Conroy, I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting." "I'm just happy you could see me at all." She crossed the rug, that pool of white, and took his extended hand. Her first impression was one of vitality and health and of well-channeled power. "It seemed important to you. What can we offer you? Some coffee, tea, or perhaps some wine?" Wine would be lovely, and would give her the prop of a glass to twist in her hands as she told her story. "The Puy Fumé, Barbara. Please sit, Miss Conroy. Be comfortable." In a move calculated to disarm her, he rounded the desk and took the chair beside her. "And how was your flight?" "Long." Dora's smile was fleeting. "But I shouldn't complain. The weather was turning nasty at home. But of course I'll go back tomorrow." "So soon?"
His bright eyes glinted with just the right touch of curiosity. "I'm flattered to have such a pretty young woman travel all this way just to see me." His receptionist had uncorked the bottle. Obviously, Dora mused, her duties included those of a wine steward. She passed Finley the cork and tipped an inch of wine in his glass for approval. "Yes," he said, after rolling the wine on his tongue and swallowing. "That will do nicely." When the wine was poured in both glasses, the secretary slipped soundlessly out of the room. Finley raised his glass. "To your health, Miss Conroy, and a safe journey home." "Thank you." It was beautiful wine, silk on the tongue, with just a hint of smoke. "I know it might sound foolish, coming all this way just to see you, Mr. Finley, but I honestly felt compelled." As if overcome, she looked down into the pale gold wine in her glass, let her fingers tighten on the stem. "Now that I'm here, I don't know where to start." "I can see you're upset," Finley said kindly. "Take your time. You told me on the phone this had to do with Anthony DiCarlo. Are you—" he paused delicately. "A friend?" "Oh, no." There was horror in her voice, in her eyes, as she dragged them back to Finley's. She imagined DiCarlo's voice whispering in her ear to bring the rusty edge of revulsion into her voice. "No, Mr. Finley, I need to ask how much you know about him." "Personally?" Thinking, he pursed his lips. "I'm afraid I don't know many of my branch employees as well as I might. The company is very large now, and unfortunately that depersonalizes matters. We had a meeting here just before Christmas. I noticed nothing out of the ordinary. He seemed as competent as always." "Then he's worked for you for some time?" 6 years, I believe, more or less." He sampled more wine. "I have studied his files since this odd disappearance to refresh my memory. He has an excellent record with the company. Mr. DiCarlo worked his way up the corporate ladder rather quickly. He showed initiative and ambition, both of which I believe in rewarding. He came from a poor background, you know." When she only shook her head, he smiled and continued, "As I did myself. The desire to better oneself. This is something I respect in an employee and also tend to reward. As one of my top executives on the East Coast, he's proven himself to be reliable and cunning." He smiled again. "In my business, one must be cunning. I'm very much afraid of foul play. As Mr. DiCarlo's work record would indicate, he isn't a man to neglect his responsibilities this way." I think I might know where he is." "Really?" There was a flash in Finley's eyes. "I think he's in Philadelphia." As if to bolster her courage, Dora took another quick sip and her hand shook lightly. "I think he's watching me." "My dear." Finley reached